Hello and welcome to Talkernate History, the podcast where we,
Matt
and Max, talk about works of alternate history scenarios, and history in general. Oh boy, I'm excited about this one.
It's going to be fun.
It's about the greatest country that's ever existed.
Belgium.
Yes, absolutely.
Liechtenstein, too.
Yeah, Luxembourg.
Monaco, Malta.
Yeah.
European microstates.
Yeah.
Those are good. Vatican.
San Marino.
San Marino.
Yeah, there's that.
Andorra.
Cape Verde.
Cape Verde. That's Africa.
Africa, but it's a
Lusophone country.
It's Lusophone, yeah. And Portugal is probably the best continental power, I think.
It's not a small country, Max.
It's not small. That's true. Yeah, there is that piece of propaganda art where it says Portugal is not a small country, and it shows Angola and Mozambique.
And quick aside, we're on a divergence before we even told you what this episode is about, although obviously the lead up will say what it is. But
it's America, by the way.
It is America. Is that Portugal's position prior to the Carnation Revolution under Salazar?
Yes.
And it was Caetano was his successor. But their position was that Angola and Mozambique were part of metropolitan Portugal. They were just as much part of Portugal as Alentejo and the Algarve. Which was an interesting position because that was a position that almost no European country took. But damn it, Macau, that's just as Portuguese as Lisbon.
And Goa is rightful Portuguese clay.
Yeah, until the Indians take it.
They just take it, and no one did anything about it at all.
The mighty Portuguese Navy was going to go to...
We'll use the mighty Portuguese nuclear forces to back our play.
That's right. It's a lot of knocking on Portugal. I can tell you it's actually a wonderful country. You should definitely visit. Really fun.
You've been there.
I have been there.
Yes.
Great food, great sights, lovely people, and really good price point for Europe.
Yes.
So that's my pitch paid for by Visit Portugal. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. They got all the money to pay you as well. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. People online, there's kind of a meme where there'll be a map of Europe and everything will be normal, and then Portugal is like bright red. So it's like proportion of people who defecate outside on a regular basis, and like Portugal is like...
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It does have the lowest literacy rate of any country in Europe.
Yeah.
But this is not to knock it. It actually is a wonderful country and a really good place to go to. I highly recommend going there. Great food, especially if you like seafood. Wonderful food, great sights. Really, really cool country. And it is not a small country, man.
It's not small. They make a lot of canned fish there.
They do.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of sardines.
That's right. Well, you would have loved, there's a store, I found it in both Lisbon and in Porto in the north part of the country called The Amazing World of Portuguese Can. And it has all these canned sardines, but it looks like themed something you'd see at a theme park. And it's like got like music and it looks like a carnival decorated like the inside of like a circus tent. Very strange. There's one in the Lisbon airport. You're like walking in the Lisbon airport. Here, the amazing... After you get past the duty-free, you can buy your sardines. Duty-free conservas is what they call them. The canned fish. It's a big deal over there.
Interesting. You're like, where's the Godfather's pizza? I don't know what's going on here.
That's right. I want a fresh, hot New York slice. Where's my Sbarro when you need it?
But I do indeed love canned fish, and I encourage everyone to have sardines. I think it's delicious, personally. I'm a huge fan. Nice cracker, some canned fish, some mustard on top of it. Only downside is the olive oil gets a little messy sometimes, so you kind of have to have some napkins and stuff. But big fan.
Mm-hmm. What does that have to do with this episode? Not a whole lot.
Nothing. Mostly nothing.
Mostly nothing.
Maybe we can wrap it around at some point. But yeah, this episode is actually going to be about the American Revolution. And wow, we did an episode about the American Revolution. It is a lost episode. No one will ever hear it, not even us.
Yeah, we did it. It was one of the first we did, but we reviewed it and we just weren't happy enough with it.
The audio was really bad. That was bad. That was not our best. But we're older and we know a lot more now. Mm-hmm. And I think this is going to be a dynamite episode.
I'm excited.
Let me tell you. Yeah,
this is going to be fun.
I recently read the Joseph J. Ellis book, The Cause, the Revolution and its Discontents, and boy howdy, that was a good book.
It's a fascinating period of time. Obviously, it is the birth of the United States. It is in some ways very improbable that we kind of made our way through it.
It is, I think as Americans, I think sometimes we get a little American centric. Like we might,
Just slightly.
just ever so slightly think we're the greatest country in the entire world and we're unique and unlike every other country. But I mean, if there is a little bit of truth to the idea that America is different and special in the world. And the American Revolution is a truly unique event for a lot of reasons.
And it's kind of shocking that the Americans won.
Yeah, it is. It isn't something that you might expect if you were thinking of things just in a petri dish in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
But to give a little bit of context, so, all right, the United States settled over time, starting in the 1600s, like Jamestown and all these things.
English settlement in the 1600s. You have the Spanish before that in the 1500s.
That's true.
But in small amounts.
St. Augustine, that kind of thing. But those
like
are mostly
Southern Hernando de Soto in like the Mississippi and all that.
Those are mostly like forts.
Yes.
Beforehand. This is like actual people coming in large
Jamestown
numbers.
and then
And
Plymouth.
That develops into the 13 colonies. And one thing, and I'm sure we'll get back to this later, but Vermont was not one of the 13 colonies. I was surprised by that.
It was not, no.
No, it is not.
No, it also isn't? Nebraska.
I know. I thought for sure it would be one of the first ones, but absolutely
We're just going
not.
to preemptively name the capital Lincoln because I feel like there'll be someone influential with that name
exactly.
later.
Well, it's that city in Britain. It's like this city's so great.
Lincoln. Lincolnshire.
Let's name a guy after this city.
Mm-hmm. Good old Lincoln.
Lincoln. Yeah. 7 Years War. So the 7 Years War.
Let's start with that. That's where we're going to start.
I think that's the first real relevant point of divergence.
The French and Indian War, Max.
As we call it. Thank you very much. I've heard it described, the 7 Years War, as the first world war, really. Because it is a war where there were battles fought in India, naval battles all over the place, a lot of fighting in the North American continent. I think
Europe.
Maybe even a little bit of fighting in South America. I'm not sure.
There may have been, yeah. Certainly raids, probably, of naval actions.
And fighting, of course, in Germany as well, because Prussia is involved in all this. And this is where Washington first cuts his teeth as a military commander in actual combat.
Fighting in, the West, in Pennsylvania and Virginia.
Yeah.
He's actually at the very start of the war. The first engagement he was involved in was towards the very beginning. Mm-hmm. That's where he gets a lot of military experience.
Did the 7 Years War start in America? Is that where it began?
I think so, but don't. I thought that, but maybe again, is that America centric?
Yeah, it's true. But I think it might have actually started
and it spread. But it was truly and these are a very good argument you can make. That was truly the first world war.
And the origins of that war is notoriously hard to really grasp. Even people who know a lot about it have trouble describing the ins and out of this conflict. But basically, it's a conflict between here in the North American continent, between the American colonies and Britain against France and against New France up in the north. In the wake of that war, Britain takes Quebec, the battle on the Plains of Abraham. And
General Wolfe,
he got his wig split, of course.
Yeah.
That is a great painting, by the way. That is an excellent painting.
It's a very famous one.
Yeah. The Native American guy who's just kind of kneeling by it and kind of looking inquisitive, looking at this guy dying. But in the wake of the 7 Years War, Britain incurs some debts, and they feel like, how are we going to pay these things off? Let's tax the colonies. Let's change the Navigation Acts into, I think, the Sugar Act. We'll increase duties on molasses or something like that.
And then there was the Stamp Act.
Every piece of paper has to be like, taxed. So playing cards, for instance, are taxed.
What?
Oh my God. Oh no.
But the Stamp Act's like 1765. So it's actually substantially before, it's 10 years before the Revolution.
Yes. But all these new taxes incurred by a Parliament kind of increases general discontent, building up, like this sense of like, this is a bunch of BS. And to a certain extent, it's kind of true because like if you're a merchant in America and you make your livelihood through buying and selling things, and suddenly overnight, a bunch of guys half a world away just say, oh yeah, we're going to make this industry totally unprofitable for you now, like overnight. And it's just kind of annoying that this happens.
Well, what's interesting about it is that, as I'm sure the view from some of the British people at the time was, this is reasonable. Like they expended a lot of money in defending the colonies, and it's almost like they didn't want to pay for it. Like we wanted this protection without paying for it. And this, the colonists saw themselves as Englishmen. They were English who were due the same representation as any person with any rotten borough in the UK would deserve. 3 people electing 10 MPs from this old Sarum, this old hill town that no one lives in anymore. No, no, but seriously, I think that's kind of how they saw it. But and you have this sort of tension in the fact that the British did not want to allow settlers to expand over the Appalachian Mountains was a huge issue too.
That was like a proclamation that George III put out. It's like, don't go over the Appalachian Mountains, don't settle out there. And of course, no one pays attention to it. Everyone completely ignores it, which is, of course, doesn't bode well for royal authority when you make a proclamation that is, of course, completely ignored. It erodes people's trust and respect in you as the monarch.
Yeah, so you basically have this kind of powder keg that, that eventually the match gets lit in 1775. But
in Britain, there's this idea of like William Blackstone. He writes this tract. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it's the law.
Yeah.
Law treatise, right?
Yeah, he writes about how Parliament actually has absolute and complete authority. If Parliament says something, then that's just the law of the land.
Yeah, there's no written constitution.
Yeah. Like constitutionality it doesn't exist. It's just
tradition and what the law is.
If you have a majority of people in a room who say something, then I guess that's just how it is, which of course doesn't inspire confidence, especially when you have no guys in that room at all.
Exactly, absolutely. But to get to some divergences.
Okay, yeah.
An alternate outcome of the 7 Years' War, would there even be an American Revolution if you still have the French sitting? Let's say the French, we have sort of a status quo antebellum. Somehow the French hold on to Quebec. How are the colonies going to react if you've got the French right over, is there going to be more pressure, higher taxes to pay for more troops and weapons and ships to protect the colonies? Or are they going to be so scared of French expansion that perhaps their people in the colonies are more compliant and more concerned about security rather than, stamp acts or, all sorts of things like that? Yeah,
I feel like there was some short story compilation we read, and there was a story in it where I think the French remain in Quebec. I think that was the first time we joked about the Declaration of Dependence. This idea that like the American colonists are willing to have a military presence in the 13 colonies in order to stand up against French aggression and all that. And, France making forts in the Ohio Valley and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's and again, this also reflects upon the fact that, the whole saying about, they tell you in school is that, 1/3 of people were loyalists, 1/3 were revolutionaries, and 1/3 were kind of in the middle. Like there was split. This was not some unified front that existed in the colonies about what should we do. And there were many people who were very attached to, we are loyal Englishmen. That was Benjamin Franklin's son. His first son, the one by his illegitimate son.
Yeah. He
was like the royalist governor of New Jersey and fled back to the UK. He was a loyalist.
It's crazy to think that. Yeah. Yeah.
Just enough time for Mel Gibson to go find him. The most accurate movie. We'll talk about some media related to the American Revolution later, but definitely The Patriot, the most accurate representation.
The Patriot, Mel Gibson.
Yes.
The most American of all time. Definitely not from a different country, Mel Gibson.
He was born in the U.S., but raised primarily in Australia.
Oh, that's okay. Interesting. Huh. I thought he was 100% Australian, but I guess not. But
he's 100%. He's 100%.
He's 100% something. Yeah.
So, okay. Sorry to get, I just didn't want to forget about talking about that. What is the threat of,
And yeah, perhaps that would make people okay with the idea of Parliament having all this power and being able to tax them, is the idea that, okay, I'm getting something out of this transaction. So, okay, another divergence. So let's go past the 7 Years' War and let's maybe move forward to taxation. A lot of these taxes, like for instance, the Townshend Act, for instance, they did not really generate any income for the British. Like instituting these taxes actually cost them more money in a lot of cases than it was, before you tried doing it in the first place.
Flat tax, man.
That's right. Damn it. I'll tell you what, we mentioned Godfather's Pizza. Herman Cain knew what he was talking about.
That's right. Well, until he died.
Before he was assassinated
by COVID.
By COVID, yes. The genetic marked illness known as COVID, invented to kill Herman Cain. Exactly.
The 999 plan was just too good. Let me just say, Godfather's Pizza, not that good.
Yeah. 9 persons, 9 doors, 9 years until the apocalypse. I don't know. I'm just blathering here, but
999.
999.
He also quoted Pokemon in
He did, yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking about when I was doing the Bob Dole talking about Pokemon. But yeah, in some like speech, he's like from Pokemon 2000 or something. How absurd.
It's like how Ben Carson said that the pyramids were built by Joseph to store grain.
To store grain, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but they weren't.
They were not.
They were
actually.
not. They were tombs. They were just what we thought they were.
Yeah. Herodotus, he knew what he was talking about.
That's right. You can go in the pyramids today, and you can go see the tombs there. I mean,
there's not a lot of room.
There's not a lot of room for grain.
Yeah.
Not the most efficient way to store grain, Ben.
Ben.
I once saw a license plate.
Uh-huh.
Back around that time, someone driving around, and it said, "America needs a Dr. Stat. Ben Carson, 2016."
Well, this wasn't on the license plate, though.
No, sorry, it was
sticker.
a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yes, the
not
official
enough,
license plate.
There's not enough letters on the license plate to say that.
I'm sorry.
ANDS. BC, Ben Carson.
No, I meant a bumper sticker. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
America needs a Dr. Stat. Ben Carson, 2016. America did not need a Dr. Stat. And even if it did, it didn't need Ben Carson.
Not that particular one. Townsend. The Townsend
Acts.
Another thing about the Townsend Acts is that they set up a system of customs officers with very little legal oversight. So it created a class of people whose job it was to enforce these rules, these duty rules that were a lot of times ignored or barely enforced. And suddenly now, even though I think a lot of these, I think some of these taxes were actually technically lowering the taxes from before, but now we're enforcing them strictly now all of a sudden.
How dare you lower my taxes?
Bring it up.
Walter Mondale says, increase those taxes. Damn it.
I would love to pay more taxes. This, what's his name? The Berkshire Hathaway guy. Warren Buffett.
I said Warren Harding. Warren Buffett.
I think he famously said, "I love paying taxes. I have no problem paying taxes."
Yeah, well, you know,
he can afford it.
It's easy for him.
Yeah, exactly.
The Wizard of Omaha.
Yeah.
Him and his best friend, Charlie Munger, who's 99 years old and still hoping to run Berkshire Hathaway.
You should write a story about Charlie Munger, about shooting down planes.
You know, I have an idea for one.
It's
in. I need to work on it soon.
Okay. Okay. You do. The clock is ticking.
I have an idea. The clock is ticking. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I wrote one about James Buckley, and he just died recently.
Yeah. Damn it. You failed.
That's what happens when you write stories about people who are 100 years old. I hate to say it, but yeah.
What the hell is wrong with you people, damn it?
Okay, yes. Charlie, no, I have an idea. I actually know exactly what I'm going to write for that one.
Okay.
It's a torch one.
Torch one. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that universe. Yeah.
That's right.
But you know, so a lot of these customs officers, all right, they would be charged with enforcing the law, and they would get to keep the cargo and even ships of offenders. So like, you know, Patrick Henry, I think it's Patrick Henry, like came into port and he had a ship and it was full of casks of Madeira. They went to like a Portuguese island.
The island Madeira.
See, I said we'd come back to Portugal. I told you we would do this.
Port is very good.
Port. Fortified wine.
Port tonic is actually the best way to drink it, in my opinion. It's a cocktail. It's delicious.
Night Train. Wild Irish Rose, Thunderbird. That's a great wine. That's another good one.
Yes, one of the classics. It's got the EU protection, the Thunderbird.
This is official. We casked it. Yeah. In the America Joins the EU universe. Yeah. What's the word? Thunderbird. What's the reason? Wine's in season. What's the price? 30 twice, 60 cents. That's all you need.
This is a protected commodity of the EU corporate.
Now stand for the national anthem, the Marseillaise. Yes. But Patrick Henry comes into port and he has all these Madeira casks, and it's only 70% of the hold. And like the customs enforcer is like, I caught you. You're smuggling. You probably went to like some Carolina island or whatever and offloaded 30% of this cargo. So you're a smuggler. So I'm going to confiscate your ship or whatever. And that's just kind of the thing that they would be able to do, these customs guys.
And that's why it was very unfair. And that's why the quote originally was, give me liberty or give me my shit back. But they went with the other one because it sounded better.
Yeah. Give me my damn wine is what I want. But like a lot of these laws, these taxes.
If only he had the UCC to protect him. If only the Uniform Commercial Code was there to protect Patrick Henry.
Napoleonic law existed in the United States, then things would be different. Yeah. So like it's not the fact that you have to pay these taxes in the first place, but like the taxes are dumb, they impede trade, and they're enforced by jerks. You know, they're the people who are corrupt. Mm-hmm. And that really makes a lot of people angry. So another divergence you could potentially have is the idea that, hey, Parliament, just don't do that. Just don't do that. You want to make money? There's better ways to make money. Not doing these taxes in the first place will make you a lot more money. Just keep the status quo. So that's definitely something that would be pretty easy to do. But unfortunately, there's this idea of the 7 Years' War. And
idea of it.
It didn't actually happen. It's just, like
it's just an idea.
This fable, this myth that there was this thing called the 7 Years' War. But like this idea that we spent all this money, we expended this blood, so they owe us. The colonists owe us. Mm-hmm. And they're a bunch of spoiled children that don't want to, pay their dues. And then on the other side, the American colonists see the British as like these extremely filled with hubris guys. So, it's kind of a difference of opinion there. But I mean, moving even beyond that, okay, so let's go forward even more. Yeah. Let's say all these taxes happen and it's in the past at this point and everyone's pissed off about them. And then you start having these committees of correspondence that are popping up.
Yes.
People are making these shadow governments across America, these like councils and shaming these royal appointed people and tarring and feathering of all this stuff.
As in John Adams, that great TV show. In the first episodes, they tar and feather a customs officer.
That's right. And there's some male nudity in that scene. So, make the kids leave the room for that one. I'll tell you. Remember that Polish show on Netflix we were watching?
Yeah, it was about like communism never falls in Poland.
1983 is, I think, or 1985, one of those.
Yeah.
It was one of those numbers.
Yes. Yeah. And then it goes like 20 years in the future, but it's a communist nation, but everyone has smartphones and all that.
Yeah. Al Gore's president of the United States.
Yes.
But the Iraq War still happens or something like that.
What?
I don't know. Yeah. It's kind of weird. But there was some male nudity in that as well.
Oh no, well that's Europe. That's a European show, though.
It's very European. Yeah.
This ad brought to you by Law and Justice.
Yeah, Mel Gibson, come to Rocklaw. Yes,
yes, Rocklaw. I've never seen a better place than Gdańsk.
Gdańsk, yes.
The beauty of the shipyards. So let's jump forward to the actual start of the war. So we get to.
Well, there's another question: is when does this war begin? Mm-hmm. Because there's Lexington and Concord, Bunker Hill. Mm-hmm. Both of these are before the Declaration of Independence.
April to June 1775.
Yeah, and
a whole year before the Declaration of Independence,
which is of course 1776, July 4th, which blew my mind. I didn't even know that. Until recently, the fact that the first battles occurred before the Declaration.
A long time before, a year before.
Exactly. And then after the Declaration of Independence.
Even before that, that's when Fort Ticonderoga was captured. There was a siege around. I mean, George Washington was already outside of Boston as the commander of the Continental Army before all this happened.
It's crazy. The idea that we have an army, we have a Congress, but we're not separate from Britain just yet. There was a lot of people like John Dickinson who still wanted reconciliation. He made the argument that, okay, Britain is sending ships over here. We're going to have a war. We're going to fight, probably. But we're fighting a parliamentary army, not a royal army. We still owe our allegiance to the king. And that's the idea of the olive branch petition.
I'm fighting against Congress, not the president.
Not the president. Yeah, the president. We're only fighting against one branch of the government, not the other one. It's kind of and even then it was a bizarre kind of mental gymnastics.
Yeah, kind of this game of Twister, like, oh, well, fighting Parliament. We're loyal. But, that's like a weird extension of the idea of the loyal opposition. That's very much informed the British, the Westminster system, which is that we're always loyal to the monarch, but we have separate views of how policy should be achieved. And at the extreme, you push that idea out to the extreme, it becomes we're fighting Parliament is a separate, well, they are, but like the parliamentary part of the government is a separate entity from the royal part of the government. I will be perfectly honest. I don't think there's a whole lot of people right now who are like, yes, I hate the parliamentary part, but you know who I love? King Charles.
King Charles, this guy, King Charles III.
Yeah. Charles, such an auspicious name for British monarchs.
Such a great track record so far. Man,
he's really not done a whole lot, actually. He's been kind of what I figured he'd be, is bland and inoffensive.
I look at King Charles III.
I'm the king of all religion in... What was we were talking about that? Was that... We were hanging out with our friend Connor, who's actually not the Connor from the old episodes. This is a different Connor who we're friends
we
with.
killed him a long time ago. So
yeah, that's right. That's
right.
Wait,
I wasn't supposed to say that.
The statute of limitations has expired, Max.
Right, exactly.
At least for the civil suit, so you're all good. You can be found guilty in court, but we can't be found liable.
If I did it, if I killed Connor, I would do it this way.
No, this is a different Connor, though. But but we were talking about how King Charles said he wanted to be like, he's like, I'm not just the head of the Anglican Church. Like, I want to be the defender of faith, not defender of the faith.
Okay, all right, Scientology.
Yes, that's right. King Charles, defender of the Jewish faith. King Charles, defender of the Sikh faith. King Charles, defender of the Wiccan faith.
I look at that guy and I say, man, I wish he could be in charge of my religion. I feel so jealous that he's not the head of my religion.
Yes. Mr. Tampon himself.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
This is who I want to be the head. Yes. But honestly, he really has been somewhat bland and inoffensive. He does what Queen Elizabeth did before she died. Go around, be the sponsor of charities, cut ribbons, open hospitals, talk to the children.
And keep your damn mouth shut. Yeah. Stop talking about things.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I think he knows if he talks too much and talks about his opinions on like architecture and, things like that. He hates like modern architecture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's got his very strong opinions about that.
That one building that's kind of egg shape, the kind of Fabergé egg building in London. Or
yes.
whatever.
Oh, I remember.
Tear it down.
Oh, the Gherkin. Which I remember the tour guide, when we were in London, the tour guide said it was inspired by Prince Harry. The Gherkin.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I wonder how. The Gherkin, like Igor Gherkin, a.k.a. Strelkov, the war criminal. He got arrested a couple months ago.
Really?
Yeah. He was writing too much critical stuff against the president, and they arrested him because of
Which president?
The president. Putin. Of course.
Yes,
of course.
Yes.
Yeah. That guy, he was involved in the Malaysia flight.
The one that got shot down. Because Malaysia Airlines 2014?
Yeah.
They were like, that's a year to forget, everybody. We're looking forward.
In 2014, I was in China for a lot of it, and one of the other people I was with was flying home on a Malaysian airline. And she was like, oh, boy. Oh, jeez. I'm a little worried about this one.
We have to take the detour over Ukraine to get back to the United States.
It's so bad.
That was very bad.
It was so bad. What a bad time.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, you hate to just say it, but there's just some airlines I'd be concerned about flying.
Yeah. Lion
Air. That's exactly what I was about to say. I was about to say Lion Air.
You fooled me once, shame on you. You fooled me twice. Don't get fooled again.
What was the thing you're telling me about? It wasn't like a commercial. It was like a charter flight in the Congo.
Oh, my God.
I hate to laugh about this because people die. Yes, I really should laugh about this.
Let's be serious here. All right. Yeah. But on this airplane, plane crashed. and they were in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and NTSB or whatever
I don't think it was
Analog.
NTSB in the Congo.
whatever it is, investigated, and they found, okay, on the approach, the weight shifted. And they tried to figure out why did the weight shift, and they theorized that it was because, and they were looking at the skeletons on board, they found a crocodile, and they theorized that the crocodile got loose. Someone had it in their bag, and this is serious, damn it. This is not funny, okay? And then the people were running from the crocodile, and it changed the approach,
The weight
angle.
profile.
And then it crashed because of that. And oh my God, of all the things to have a plane crash over.
Brought down by Lyle Crocodile.
And it can happen to anybody. It happened in the Soviet Union. Like 12 admirals died in a plane crash because they were taking back giant reams of printer paper in the hold, and they didn't properly secure it. And it rolled forward. Once again, this is not funny, damn it. Stop laughing. And like a significant portion of the leadership of the Soviet Navy died because they were black market taking paper back to the Soviet Union. I think they went to East Germany or something like that, where prices.
Oh
were better.
yeah, great paper. I'm sure the quality of paper in East Germany just killer.
Everything is relative, like.
Woo. Okay, not funny. Not funny. And
Speaking of paper. The Stamp Act.
the Stamp Act.
Yes.
Okay.
But
so when does the war start? That is where
Yeah.
this is truly a Wikipedia deep dive. We were jumping from topic to topic. We got a long way from the revolution.
I mean, I guess the first. I mean, if you want to get really technical, the shot heard round the world.
Lexington.
And
then conquered.
Yeah, and then conquered, exactly. And, there's also Bunker Hill as well after that. I mean, like, when does hostilities actually begin?
Don't fire till you see the whites of their eyes. Bunker Hill, huge disaster for the British. Concord, a defeat for the British. Lexington, not so much a defeat for the British.
But is it really a war until you're fighting another nation? Or is it some kind of, like, anti-terrorist operation?
Well, the
before
thing
that?
is, I remember reading this somewhere, is the American Revolution a revolution or is it a civil war? Because the British considered these to be colonies. I mean, these are part of the British Empire. Is this a civil war?
Well, that's another thing, is that neither side called it a revolution through the entirety of the conflict. The British called it the American Rebellion, and the Americans called it the cause, or the present cause.
The cause.
The cause, yeah. It's a sufficiently vague term for whatever is happening right now.
It's like when you hear someone refer to the Civil War as the war, as if there have been no wars since 1865.
Or the recent unpleasantness.
The recent unpleasantness 160 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that day like it was yesterday. Yes. But yeah, I guess that's a good question. And I mean, I guess that's why we consider the war beginning, I guess. It's a hard question. And like up until the signing of the Declaration of Independence, there were still a lot of people who wanted a reconciliation here.
A lot of political moderates, I think, really were interested in finding some sort of compromise.
Some kind of local rule, but also acknowledging the king.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't impose duties and taxes on us. We do that, but we still will bend the knee to you, King George III.
Mm-hmm. You, the greatest of the Hanoverians.
Yeah, you, the greatest German on planet Earth. Yeah.
Well, he actually was the first of the Hanoverian kings who were born in Britain, because his grandfather, George II, one of those English kings that everyone forgets about, who was king for actually quite a long time, and then George I were both born in Germany. George I basically didn't speak English.
Crazy to think about, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the whole thing about, I think we've talked about that before, is I think it was Henry IV was the first king of England. So 1399 is when he took the throne, who grew up speaking English. There were kings before him who could speak English, but they learned it as a second language. Up to him, the language was French. If you go back to the court of Henry III in the mid-1200s, people speak French. You know, King John, King Richard, all these people, they may have been able to speak English to an extent or understand it to an extent, but they spoke French. I mean, Richard the Lionheart particularly thought of himself as French. The Angevin Empire is really more centered in France in some ways. England is just a tax base for them, and a nice title to have as a duke as you compete against the other dukes in France to be like, oh, by the way, I'm King of England.
You know, the Angevin Empire, that's kind of a little segue here. Benjamin Franklin wrote some tract. I can't remember the exact name of it. It was something very generic about on the peoples of the earth and the increasing of their numbers, or something, really weird about that. But anyway, the point of the, I think I actually wrote it down somewhere. Observations concerning the increase of mankind and countries, etc. That's the name of the work. And in it, he talked about how demographically the colonies are doubling in population every 20 years. And pretty
Mostly
soon,
due to him.
the father of our country.
The father of our country.
Yes, alternate presidents. Father of his country, I should say. But
that's pretty good. You got to admit it.
That is pretty good. Yes. But in the writing, he talked about how demographically the continental peoples are going to outnumber Britain, and that if we're going to stay together, eventually it's going to be an Anglo-American empire, and that perhaps we should move the capital from Britain to somewhere in central Pennsylvania. We'll put it there somewhere.
Yes,
and
Harrisburg. Yay.
Yeah, the king will live there, Buckingham Palace 2.0, and we'll stay one big happy family, one big happy Anglo family.
Yes.
And it was a popular notion that, well, that's maybe going to happen in the future. And some people thought maybe there'd probably be independence at some point, but
Britain will declare independence from us.
because we're taxing them too much.
That's right.
The big problem. It's the British coal and steel workers who are like, damn it, these tariffs are just driving us. We need to protect our own industry. That's the issue. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher has a Brexit. Britain is exiting the British Empire.
Okay, so we got a lot to cover.
We do.
We need to get rolling.
I like this, though. I kind of like the nebulous.
Yes.
It's fine.
The crocodile.
It's like, whatever. Let's see. So we were talking about, when did the war begin? Then the Declaration of Independence.
So that big picture, let me tell you why John Hancock signed it so big.
Yeah.
He's 6'10". Just kidding. No, I'm joking.
That's
that's a joke.
Yeah.
And because he had to hide the secret map on the back so Nicolas Cage could find it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I rewatched those movies a few months ago. A little ridiculous. But
somewhat.
Nicolas Cage is good in them, Sean Bean doesn't die in them.
That's
Although
true.
he does murder some people, so maybe he's later going to get executed. I don't know.
That's probably true. Yeah.
That would make a really crazy end to that movie. It's like, here's Sean Bean.
Getting the lethal injection. Yeah. Old Sparky. Yeah.
Do you have any last words? Why does this happen in every movie I'm in?
One movie he gets killed in, Equilibrium.
He does. Another movie.
Another
Goldeneye.
Yeah, Goldeneye. Get dropped from...
Because that drop definitely didn't kill him. No way falling 300 feet onto solid concrete wouldn't kill you.
I think that's Maracaibo, the Maracaibo Observatory.
Yes.
Yeah, where they sent that weird pixel image to aliens. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, did they? What did they send to the aliens?
It's just kind of like pixel art. They were like...
They sent the movie Pixels to them. Yes. Kevin James. Fine. There's what was that show? Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There's Andy Samberg's character at some point is at like a auction, and Adam Sandler's there, and he's like, "Why are you here?" And he's like, "I'm a collector of historical stuff. I'm actually writing a script about the Russian Revolution." And Andy Samberg goes, "Well, who does Kevin James play?" And he goes, "Ha ha, very funny, Trotsky." That was pretty good. That was pretty good. Zookeeper, starring Kevin James.
Oh, yes.
Wait, is it We Bought a Zoo or Zookeeper? I think it's Zookeeper with Kevin James in it. That's the one where the front of it has a gorilla and Kevin James sitting in a roller coaster.
Yeah, that's Zookeeper.
That's Zookeeper.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's talking animals, right?
I think. I never saw it.
So, okay. It's actually the Maracaibo message, not the Maracaibo. But yeah, Maracaibo
Lake
message.
Maracaibo, that's what we're thinking.
But it's this.
We sent them a picture from a 1980s video game.
Yeah, I think they probably will understand what that's all about.
What the hell is this?
That's a good question. So the little red man, that's humanity.
Us. But where's our head, though? Where's the guy's head?
It's right there.
That's a little head.
It is a small
is...
head, true. But I mean, you know. And then like the green, I think the green is supposed to be the different chemical elements. So that's supposed to be like carbon and hydrogen and, you know, like, you know, oxygen. Yeah, just look at it. I mean, you know what this is.
No. But...
No. Okay. All right. Fair enough. And like, I think the genome is supposed to be in there too. It's like it, but of course it's nonsense.
It looks like alien invaders. I want to shoot. I want to have the gun thing at the bottom that goes and shoots it.
And I think the big M with the purple thing on top of it.
It's supposed to be the Maracaibo.
Yeah, it's in ruins now. It's like collapsed, the whole thing. Yeah. But yeah, that is where they shot GoldenEye right there in the 90s. And I think this is in Venezuela or Colombia.
No, it's Puerto Rico.
Oh my God, it is Puerto Rico.
It's not
Holy moly. You're right.
The scene of many good fight scenes in the GoldenEye video game.
That's true, yeah. At the very end, though, you wouldn't know it. Only. With all the fog everywhere. It's like, where the hell am I?
And you always hated it when someone picked Odd Job because he was so short. Especially if you were Jaws, couldn't hit him.
Yeah, Jaws versus Odd Job. Richard Kiel versus that Korean guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're both dead now, I believe.
Yeah, probably. Most likely. William. Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm looking at the Wikipedia article for the Maracaibo Observatory. In this episode about the American Revolution. But yeah, is it a civil war? If you think about it. I mean,
greatest transition ever.
I mean, yeah, like, because there was a lot of loyalists who were fighting for the British. And they were really big time left in the lurch at the end of all this because, you know, the British leave and these loyalists, you know, a lot of them went to Canada.
They gave us Hayden Christensen.
They did.
I don't know if is that a fair trade.
William Shatner. They gave us
William Shatner.
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd.
Oh my God.
Other famous Canadians. Walter Houston. John, which we can talk about later.
Yeah.
We need to get back on track. But at some point, we need to talk to you about Gabriel over the White House.
What a film. Let me tell you.
Oh, wow.
What a film. Holy. We watched that movie before we started recording, and that is a film right there. That is a think piece, as they call it. Got a lot of stuff to think about after that one.
So we've got obviously the early part of the revolution. So
yes.
What happens if, and talking about 1775, 1776, what if, you know, the British, Bunker Hill, all that, they crush the early rebellion in Boston? Yeah. What if the British, it's an outright victory, they smash sort of the rebellion there? Is it going to be limited to Massachusetts? Are other people going to say, hey, they got crushed up there, they got defeated?
That's a good question. So Bunker Hill was kind of sort of a victory for Britain. They were able to take territory.
Yes, but it was a Pyrrhic victory.
It was a huge Pyrrhic victory because they had enormous casualties at the end of it. And every single British casualty is a huge detriment to their cause.
Yeah, because they got to ship them over.
Now, you do have loyalists who are helping you out, but not everywhere is a loyalist area. Like, especially New England. New England is a hotbed of revolutionary activity. Like every battle that happened around that area before the fighting started, the Continental Army would balloon with militia that would come out of the woodwork. Like, okay, I would like to fight. Yeah, let's do this. So if they completely embarrass the Americans and they run away, I mean, sure, yeah, that would be pretty detrimental to the cause. And I think another even worse disaster would be after this. George Washington actually went on Long Island. Went to Long Island.
Yes, this is a good one.
Yeah. Because what were their names? The brothers, the admiral and the
Cornwall.
General.
Howe. Gates. Howe.
The Howe brothers.
Howe, not Gates. That's
Admiral
Horatio
Howe
Gates.
and General Howe. Yeah. Gates was an American. Horatio. Oh, Horatio. I die, Horatio.
I die, Horatio.
Frasier, what a great show. But George Washington, he was very New York centered. It's like, damn it, I want New York. New York is really important. We have to protect New York. We have to protect Long Island, Manhattan, even though they're hotbeds of loyalist activity.
Yeah, New York was a very strong loyalist.
Very strong. But despite that, despite their indefensibility, because they are islands, you know, they are very isolated. So something like, let's say, the Royal Navy can surround it, prevent any kind of escape from it.
Yeah.
So Washington was kind of almost very foolish to try to defend these places, but he
Brooklyn.
did. Brooklyn, yeah.
Battle of Brooklyn Heights.
Exactly, yeah. There was eventually, he was able to extricate himself from Long Island.
Into Manhattan, but eventually on back over into New Jersey.
And that Battle of Brooklyn was decisive because it could have been the death knell for the Continental Army at the time.
Absolutely. Yes,
So-
it would have been if they had captured, and we'll talk about some media related to alternate history in
Yes.
the American Revolution towards the end, but there's a story called What the Fog Wrought in a book called What If?
Yeah, what
Just
if?
called What If?
Not what if 2, just what if.
There is What If 2,
Yes.
but What If is better than What If 2, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Sorry, Robert Crowley. But, I mean, it truly is. This is a decisive moment because if they capture the whole Continental Army plus Washington, I don't see how the revolution survives. It pretty much will end here.
Yes. Yeah. It is quite difficult. So, like, the Continental Army at the time was isolated on Manhattan, and they were able to escape. General Howe on the British side did not push the attack after this abortive attempt to attack the British, and they were able to evacuate themselves back onto the mainland, and they very easily could have taken them if they just wanted to strike a decisive blow.
Absolutely.
But at that time, the Howe brothers were thinking that they could do a whiff of grape shot, as Napoleon would say. We're going to bloody them a little bit, embarrass
I'm going to blow
them.
apart some of you.
Yeah, we're going
with
to
grape shot.
We'll kill a few people, but we're not going to try to actually, fight a war or whatever. I mean, we're just here to show you we mean business. We'll kill a few people, and then, we're going to cow you into coming back into the fold and, be the prodigal son to come back to us.
You will love British humor forever.
Right. You will spell color with a U from now on.
Damn it.
Damn it.
You have to get on program, PROGAMME. What's the brief? Let's get in the queue.
Let's spell civilization with an S from now
Yes.
on. Yeah.
Diarrhea with an OE. It's true, though. They do spell it with it.
A little different. Crackers?
What?
Crackers? Those are cookies.
Those are
Thank you very
cookies.
much.
If you mean
Yeah.
biscuit, a cookie, that's a biscuit.
Wait, I'm so confused. Maybe I'm backwards. I don't know.
No.
Yeah, it's one of
A
those.
cookie is a biscuit.
A cookie is a biscuit. Got
And
it.
a biscuit, well, they don't have the equivalent over there.
There are no biscuits.
Well, what do you...
What are you gonna do?
That's right. Monty Python on all channels.
Yeah, Monty Python bounces the Rhine. There you go.
So yes, but they
Yes.
were trying to do sort of this whiff of grape shot approach, but it fails. And Washington pulls off a remarkable, it truly is.
Yeah.
And this is something that we don't really think about because when we think about, you're thinking about Washington, the Revolution, you know what you're thinking about? Valley Forge and that famous
Crossing
crossing the Delaware. I'm currently looking at your computer, which has an interesting rendition of the crossing of the Delaware.
Yeah, but they're all Japanese.
They're all Japanese.
Yeah, but they still have the American flag though.
Good, excellent.
Yeah.
And that Japanese, that traditional artwork.
Yeah.
I like that. That's pretty cool. But yeah, that's what you're thinking about. But this is almost more remarkable in some ways than the whole Trenton and crossing the Delaware and all that. I mean, like Washington, they narrowly pulled this off.
The fact that they were able to escape is crazy.
Yeah.
Like they put themselves in extreme danger by trying to protect Manhattan and Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like Dunkirk in a lot of ways, that the Germans could have pushed the advantage and captured a whole bunch of people, killed a whole bunch of people, but they didn't. They did not. So because of that, the course of the war is perhaps changed greatly. And I mean, here's the other thing too, and this is something that Joseph Ellis points out, is that the army, the Continental Army, was probably replaceable. You could probably find the same number of people who would be willing to join up even after a terrible defeat like this. But if Washington is captured, if Washington is taken out of the picture, then who knows what happens after that.
He is truly, and Washington is really one of those, there's key moments in history, key figures where truly it is hard to imagine a lesser man or a different person shouldering the weight and doing what they did.
Yeah.
Churchill in 1940, I don't think there was anyone other than Churchill who could have held Britain together in 1940. Really, Stalin in the early 40s is so at the high tide, sort of the blood zenith of the German invasion of the Soviet Union. I don't know if anyone of a lesser constitution could have taken it. Without Washington, the revolution doesn't happen. There's just no one else who commanded the sort of respect, or frankly, I mean, he really is one of those pivotal figures that a lesser person very well either would have crumbled under the pressure or simply would not have had the impact. And that's why, I mean, maybe we'll discuss it at the end about the eternal debate, like who's the most important president in American history. I would say Warren Harding, but
Yeah,
in a sop
of course.
to all those ridiculous popular historians out there, either Abraham Lincoln or George Washington. And there's good arguments you can make for both of them, but Washington has a very strong claim to being the greatest. I think it tends to be Lincoln tends to edge him out, but I mean, his importance in the revolution in the early years of the Republic is really, really almost impossible to understate. Overstate. Sorry, and it's impossible to understate. No, he really is. I mean, Washington, a revolution. You take out Washington, who's there?
Yeah, Horatio Gates.
Yeah.
Benedict Arnold. Yes.
Benedict. Eggs Benedict.
Yeah.
Not named after Benedict Arnold. I've been betrayed by this hollandaise sauce.
Yes, great Arnold. Yes. Hey Arnold.
The great Arnold of Hey Arnold.
Yes. What a great show. Yes.
But yes, so this is a pivotal moment. Yeah, and that's a good point that perhaps the troops are replaceable, but that man is not replaceable.
But in our history, he escapes. He's able to get out of there. And then
our history, you mean actual history.
Our timeline, our specific timeline.
OTL.
The real one. Yeah.
So what we have is, okay, so we get past New York and then the fighting around New York. There's some fighting in New Jersey, and then you get to obviously the classic. It's the winter of 1776, Washington at Valley Forge, crossing the Delaware. I don't think they struck as cinematic poses as they did in the painting.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't there, so I'm not able to. You were, though. So, I mean, you can tell me.
Well, just like Patton, I was here. I went to Valley Forge and I was like, I was here.
Omar, I was there. Okay.
I was there, Omar.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked that they didn't go, and we're appointing you, Omar. Sorry, Patton's too busy telling everyone about how he was a Greek hoplite or whatever it was.
What the hell you're
Sorry, George C. Scott. Where Patton ends and George C. Scott begins really is kind of fuzzy. I hate to say it, but you'll say Patton, and the first thing that snaps into my mind is I see George C. Scott.
Yeah. Well, 1775.
Yes.
Invasion of Canada occurs at this time.
Oh, we've overlooked this. Yes, this is interesting.
So yeah, the United States, or whatever the hell, it's not 1776 yet, so we're not the United States yet, I guess. I don't know. The United Colonies in rebellion attempt to go into Quebec to defeat the British there, to bring it into their cause. And that would be two different cities. That'd be
Quebec City
and
Montreal.
And Montreal too.
I think Quebec City was more important at the time, but Montreal is a bigger city now. I don't know.
But I mean, I'm not an expert on this part of the war, not at all. But I mean, in my mind, though, if we take these two cities, they're both on the St. Lawrence River, right?
Yeah. And so what happened is Benedict Arnold leads an expeditionary force. I think, do they take Montreal, but they're stopped outside Quebec City. It's been a long time. I should have read more before this, but it's been crazy busy. But point is that they fail to take these cities and eventually retreat back in. This is where Benedict Arnold actually loses one of his legs. Loses one of his legs.
What?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and that's why there were people after his betrayal said, there's at least one part of him was still loyal, the leg cut off.
It's like Santa Anna, his leg. He also lost that.
But but if this succeeds, this could have been a game changer, because for later, when we're about to talk about it, about the Battle of Saratoga, those forces are marching down from Quebec. If Benedict Arnold captures Montreal and Quebec City, let's just say he does. I don't think he really had the troops to do it, but let's say he does. I guess there's a couple things he could do. I guess he could just burn them to the ground and leave them, which would hurt the British, but maybe not change anything. If he holds on to them, does this shift where the fighting in the war is? Are the British now oh shit, we got to force them out of the St. Lawrence River? Yeah. How does this change the future of the war? Does Saratoga even happen if they have to figure this out? Or is it a disaster because the colonies are overextended? Yeah.
Or is it another example like New York, wherein they're trying to hold on to these cities and then they're on the St. Lawrence River? The Royal Navy can go down that river and then land troops and then encircle you, outmaneuver you, do all these things to you. Is it like the British taking Philadelphia, but in reverse?
Yeah, This year they did. They did take Philadelphia. They held it for a long time.
New York, but they had to leave because they couldn't hold on to it.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So if this campaign succeeds and the U.S. manages to hold on to these territories, does Canada become part of the U.S. after the war? The Treaty of Paris. It is the Treaty of Paris, right?
Yes, it
it's
is.
Actually,
One
the
of them.
default is to just say the Treaty of Paris because it probably is most statistically right.
I think the 7 Years' War was that Utrecht or was that also the Treaty of Paris? I can't remember.
Utrecht was the War of Spanish Succession.
Oh, okay.
After poor Charles III. Was he Charles III? The one with
the other Charles III.
the very severely inbred Charles III. After he died in the Bourbon, Louis the 14th wanted to put a Bourbon on the throne.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was the Treaty of Utrecht. I think the Treaty of Ghent was the War of 1812. I know that.
Okay.
The Treaty of Versailles, is World War I.
Yes.
The Treaty of Portsmouth is the Russo-Japanese War.
Interesting. With Teddy Roosevelt, that's where he got his Nobel Peace Prize.
That's right.
The most peaceful president of all time. Yeah.
Teddy, who also has a Medal of Honor, which was awarded in 2001.
Well, yeah.
Well, he had to stop Mark Twain somehow. Callback.
That story you wrote, yes.
Oh, man. So what does the early United States look like if basically these Canadian territories, because that's the most important part of Canada. Most important part of Canada at this time is Quebec. Yeah. That is vital, the St. Lawrence. What becomes Ontario will become important later by the War of 1812 because a lot of loyalists end up moving there.
And if loyalists can't move there, does that change the demographics of the United States?
Yeah, where do the loyalists go? Drac? Oh, no,
God.
Nope, we're not bringing it in. Shove that door closed, damn it.
To go to South Africa, oh no. But it's unknowable how many loyalists left the United States to go to Canada. But the answer is a lot of people left. And freed slaves as well. A lot of slaves that were freed by, I can't remember the name of the guy, but there was a British commander who was blanket giving emancipation to any slaves who joined British ranks. Well, a lot of them went to Canada.
Yeah.
But if they can't leave, then I guess they're still in the United States.
They go to Britain? I don't know. Or other British colonies in the Western Hemisphere.
And here's yet another thing. Okay, here's another important thing, is the fact that when the Articles of Confederation are written, one of the compromises in the Articles of Confederation is that all these states in the United States, these newly created United States, are going to stop having these territorial disputes within themselves. So like, hey, Connecticut, stop saying you own part of Ohio.
The Western Reserve.
The Western Reserve, yeah.
Where Case Western Reserve University comes from.
I said I would talk about Vermont again. Vermont was disputed territory between New Hampshire and New York. It was a no man's land, sort of, kind of. And Ethan Allen, who was a guy who bought a bunch of territory in that no man's land, and a bunch of other people, a bunch of other landowners said, no, we're neither one. We're this different place called the Vermont Republic. And the Vermont Republic is not one of the 13 colonies. And it was sort of part of the Revolutionary War, but not officially, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. And then he said, do you want to buy some furniture?
Yeah.
Ethan Allen.
Yes, yeah.
But Vermont, that was a big sticking point in the early years of the United States is what is Vermont? Is it part of another state or is it independent?
Yeah. And even there was some
They were waiting for Bernie Sanders. They've just been waiting.
I've been waiting for a man like you to come into
Calvin
my life.
Coolidge, born in Vermont.
Yes, Plymouth Notch.
On July the 4th, the only president. Lots of presidents seem to die on July the 4th, but only one of them was born on the 4th of July.
Yes, he's got the spirit of Jefferson and Adams.
That's right.
Came into him
and Monroe too. Don't forget about him.
Yeah, all mixed together into one man, Calvin Coolidge.
Calvin the Chatterbox.
Calvin the Chatterbox. He can't stop talking. You got to stop talking. We can't run the country.
So back on track. You have another point you would put down on our notes.
Oh yeah. So obviously, Admiral Howe lands first in New York. They take New York City. They take Manhattan. They take Long Island. They take a large part of New York, but not upstate New York. They don't take that. Later in the war, they're able to take Augusta and Savannah. Almost without a fight, really.
We took Charleston, too, later.
Just a few thousand guys go down. And Charleston, yes, of course, also. So they take basically the entirety of Georgia. they're able to take one of the stars off the colonial flag.
No.
Oh no!
Oh, Georgia, the most important.
So yes,
Oglethorpe.
I guess that's kind of a thing, is that it's sparsely populated. But I mean, there were a lot of loyalists down south as well, and I mean,
much stronger than like New England.
And I think that's part of the reason why there was a Southern strategy for the second half of the war.
Southern strategy?
Yes, just like that story with Adlai Stevenson.
Too smart to be president.
Too smart to be president. Too smart to survive being killed by police officers.
Too dead to be president.
Too dead to be president, Adlai Stevenson. At the Democratic National Convention, it's like in memoriam of got lit up by German police officers. Only Estes Kefauver can save us now.
That's right.
But yeah, in the second half of the war, a lot of fighting was happening down south.
Yeah,
and
the Patriot.
The Patriot. You can see the documentary "The Patriot" to learn more about this. But
this is a good part for the chopping the guy in the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Teaching your children to murder people.
Bad furniture in that movie. He sits in that chair and it collapses. You know, if only Ethan could help you. Yeah. But, what if they had started their invasion in the South? Cover more territory, take Georgia, parts of South Carolina. I don't think it would result in a victory, probably not. But it would cause a lot of mischief in terms of freeing slaves and filling your rank with freed slaves, most of whom would then go to Canada after the war, taking a large bite out of the slave population. Would that change the calculus in terms of...
Or you're going to have the colony split, more like the Mid-Atlantic, and New England remains independent, but the southern colonies are too under the control of the British.
Oh, yeah, I guess at the end of the war, if you can hold on to it. But yeah, I mean, well, you were talking about Saratoga, and the reason why Saratoga is so important is because that is when France decides to intervene at that point. The colonies have a smashing, huge success in that battle. And that's what convinces them that it's worth throwing their hat in the ring on this conflict.
Investing in the,
But if you start the war in the South, everything's different. Everything's all topsy-turvy and different. So you're
likely going to go very poorly for the, I almost said the North, but
the North, the Union.
The
Union. Wait, no.
the U.S.
Yeah, the U.S. I mean, it doesn't mean that they'll have a success because, once again, it's sparsely populated and everything. But perhaps the Treaty of Paris would be different. Perhaps Britain would be able to hold on to one or two of the colonies down south, Georgia and South Carolina or something like that. Yeah. That might be interesting.
Which would have massive effects on what the future of the United States looks like.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about it later, but the Treaty of Paris is crazy beneficial to the U.S.
Yeah, like, really is.
It's unbelievable that they got all that they got from that treaty. And I'm going to go back to the 7 Years' War here a little bit, but this could be incorrect. Disclaimer, this might not be true, but I believe that the French were given an option during the peace process of that war. They were given the option of either giving up New France, giving up Quebec, or giving up several Caribbean islands. And they're like, oh, absolutely, New France. Absolutely, Canada. No doubt about it. Yeah. We don't need that anymore because these Caribbean colonies make money.
Yeah, sugar and tobacco. Yeah, I mean, they were massive money makers. Yeah, the original drivers of this transatlantic slave trade.
Yes, absolutely. Saint-Domingue, high turnover. Horrible down there because the tropical diseases, the heat, overwork. People would die like crazy down there in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And here in North America was a sideshow.
Sort of like how Brazil slavery was, they kept the slave trade up for a long time because there was, I think it was coffee, sugar, that really drove very high fatality levels. But they also are getting their slaves from different areas, which is also interesting.
Not West Africa?
I think, well, I'm certainly from West Africa, but I think a larger percentage came from Angola and Mozambique.
Is that right?
Which would make sense. They were Portuguese.
Lusophone. Yeah, interesting. That's fascinating.
Let's get back on topic about losing the Battle of Saratoga would be a huge turning point as well. The Americans do not win that. The likely colonies being split, the French not getting involved. Possibly the colonies can hold out long enough, or maybe the British just wear them down.
Yeah.
over the long term.
And I mean, there's the Battle of Trenton, there's crossing the Delaware, and I think that's thought of very gloriously, probably for two reasons. One, because it's a victory, one of the few victories,
especially early on, after the Americans had a rough 1776 military-wise.
And it involves George Washington, which of course, Saratoga is kind of tainted by the fact that Benedict Arnold is involved in that, and he's obviously later a traitor. He actually fights. He becomes a commander in the Revolutionary War and burns down American towns. Richmond. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And it was really for money.
Yeah.
It was a dispute over money.
I want more money. That's what I want.
But here, what if Washington does not cross the Delaware? Is this a defeat? I don't know if it ends the whole American cause, but it was a victory when there was very little light to be had on that front.
Yes.
And because Trenton was not like a strategic victory of any major sort.
No, I mean, they captured a bunch of Hessians, and that was important. And
Hessians.
It was a nice morale boost. Yeah, mercenaries. That was one of the big.
Mercs.
So when you talk about motivations for common people in the Revolutionary War, for Americans, there's two big reasons why people were incensed and willing to fight and die as militiamen. And one of them was the rejection of the Olive Branch Petition, where we tried to appeal directly to the king and say, King George III, please, please, please rethink things. And him saying, I didn't even read the thing. Screw you, big time. I don't respect you at all. And the second thing was hiring mercenaries. For whatever reason, having these foreign German speakers coming in here is just, I can't believe it. How
could they?
That's the thing that really sets a lot of these people off.
Well, I think that because they saw this as maybe they saw if there were other Englishmen fighting against them, would at least treat them with respect for their rights as Englishmen established in 1688 in the glorious Revolution. And then you have these Hessian mercenaries who come over and are a reminder of the brutality of war. A lot of them pillaging and stuff like that. Not that the British didn't do that either, but I think that it
and
was
the Americans too, foraging.
Mercenaries are usually hated by people they're fighting against because they're seen as because there's one thing if you're well, this guy who I'm fighting against, he was drafted or he signed up because he had no choice. But it's different when professional soldiers, I mean, they're very skilled, but also at the same time you're thinking, oh, this guy just likes doing it or he's just doing it for the money.
Yeah.
Really doesn't go over well.
Or there's the idea of love of country or love of the king.
Yeah.
And a love of money is what's behind this.
King Charles III. I'm going to sign up for the Royal Air Force tomorrow.
Yes.
To fly a Eurofighter Typhoon.
I'm going to join the French Foreign Legion just because I love liberty and equality and fraternity, and I'm also wanted by the FBI as well. That's the other reason.
They actually do background checks now, apparently,
what?
So you can't do that as much. But who I really like is what's his? Damn it! I see his face. You're going to sign up for the Foreign Legion to fight for
Jean-Claude Van Damme?
No, he's Belgian. First of all, no.
Oh God, sorry.
What's his name? The president of France.
Macron.
Macron. I keep on thinking of Sarkozy, but that was 5 people ago.
Oh God, no, yeah.
Yes,
Sarkozy.
Macron.
Yeah, he's friends. Macron is friends with Sarkozy.
Oh.
Yeah. Macron is the enlightened...
Macron was also friends with his high school English teacher.
Yes, he was.
Later married.
He married, yeah.
Or not English teacher, drama teacher.
And she was married at the time. What a weird situation that is. Very strange. What the hell? Only in France, I guess.
Macaroon. That's every time I see his name. That's what I think, too.
Macaroni.
Macaroon.
Yeah. Yankee Doodle.
But that's what you did it for the love of Macron. That's why you did it.
Yeah, that's why.
Because you said, I can't think of anything better than fighting in sub-Saharan Africa for French Fashoda syndrome interests.
Yeah, for Niger, yeah.
Niger. Well, either, yeah.
Yeah. ECOWAS. I fight for ECOWAS, for Nigeria. For the glory of Ghana, for the glory of
Cote
d'Ivoire, Togo, yeah. Omar Bongo.
Is he still around?
No.
Really?
He must be dead. He has to be, right?
I don't know. He could be, but...
Confirmed dead, 2009.
2009? Wow.
Yeah.
I was way off base on that one.
Yeah, it was like yesterday, really. 42 years.
El Hajj Omar Bongo Ondimba. Born Albert Bernard Bongo. So, also, if Washington doesn't cross the Delaware, we would also be deprived of that Kelsey Grammer movie where he plays George Washington.
That's true. That's true.
Fraser, you're late. Where's David Hyde Pierce?
A matter of honor. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, that's another thing too. Is you said that Benedict Arnold left mostly for money. What if we paid him more money?
I know. Well, and there's two points to this. One, before we get to the Benedict Arnold, is that also the Continental Army, remarkable that it didn't fragment for lack of pay, because the Continental Congress was completely inefficient and terrible, and shocking that the Continental Army held together.
Horrible. Reading that book, The Cause, it blew my mind just how ineffectual and terrible the Continental Congress and the Confederation Congress, the Congress after the Articles of Confederation, were. Like, they would ask for money. They would say, we need $3 million or $300,000. Let's call it $300,000.
We need $30.
But we have no authority to tax you. We're just asking nicely for money. And then the colonies say, here, have $30,000. Here's 10% of what you want. And it's like, this is no, this is not good enough.
Yeah.
Like the Congress, the Continental Congress and the Confederation Congress are just absurd. And then they would meet and then they would say, we don't have a quorum. Not enough people showed up. So I guess we're going to do nothing. Bye. Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah. It was remarkable that the Continental Army didn't fracture into that. But getting back to it,
yes.
Benedict Arnold. What if Benedict Arnold never defects? What if we pay him the money he wants?
Yeah, well, he's a hero. He remains a hero.
He will be a revered hero. Like Nathaniel Greene, the guy who said, I have but one life. Not him. It's different. There's Nathaniel Greene, the general, but then there's the only thing I regret is I have but one life to give for my country.
Nathaniel Hale?
Is that him? Nathan Hale.
Nathan Hale. Not Nathaniel Hale. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. But he would have gone down as a hero. And the question is, would if he had an important role, because he was a very popular and successful general, would he have had an important role in the early American Republic if he hadn't defected? Would he have become an early president, Secretary of State? Because if in this world, he's a hero. He's the hero of Saratoga. Yeah. He's second probably in stature to Washington in military heroism.
I mean, Saratoga is a huge victory. It is an absolutely gigantic victory for the Americans. But you got to wonder, I mean, does that badness inside of you, that willingness to betray your fellow people just for money, I mean, does that show later in some other circumstance, you know?
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard.
Well, it's interesting. It'd be interested to see what happens in a world in which Benedict Arnold never defects, and he is not the greatest traitor of American history. But does he, kind of fade into obscurity? Is he well known? Is he the second president? Mm-hmm. Is he the Secretary of State? Is he the Secretary of the Treasury? I mean, who knows?
Let me look up how old he is real quick. So he's born
how old he was.
Well, the jury's still out.
He's a 270.
So Benedict Arnold is 10 years younger than George Washington, more or less. So, I mean, yeah, that's a lasting impact on politics. I mean, George Washington died sort of young.
He was in his 60s.
He was in his, well, okay, I guess maybe it wasn't that young.
Depends
for the
on
time.
for the time, yeah.
Benjamin Franklin, I mean, he was, how old was he?
Close in his 80s, I think.
He was in his 80s, yeah.
John Adams lived to be 90. Jefferson lived into his 80s. Madison lived into his 80s. Washington was like late 60s, but that was pretty substantial. That was a very normal lifespan for his time.
And he died prematurely, too, because, I mean... Well, he
got an infection.
Infection in his throat. It's
epiglottis. Like it's like epiglottis or something. It's like an infection of the back of your throat.
His tonsils got inflamed, and it's like, well, gotta bleed you for all you're worth. Gotta, bleed quarts and quarts of blood out of you, and then we'll give you like a freaking a tracheotomy or whatever.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's horrible. It's a complete travesty the way George Washington died.
Yeah.
So yeah, Benedict Arnold has some staying power. He's 10 years younger, so he could still be around for longer.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. That could be an interesting short story analyzing that. The politician,
about that, yeah.
Benedict Arnold. Yeah.
Let's see what we've got listed down. What if the U.S. won a more limited victory and is boxed in on the East Coast? That was just a thought I wrote down.
Yeah, there was that Fort Sackville story.
Yeah, that's kind of along the lines of the Fort Sackville thing, is that what happens if the U.S. is limited to the Eastern Coast? Truly, it's the 13 colonies. Maybe they pick off Florida, Maine, or whatever, but it's pretty much the East Coast.
Yeah, and then the British maintained some forts along the Ohio River or Mississippi River. I don't know.
That set up a showdown with the British later on. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting idea. Or what if the U.S. has a bigger, more dramatic victory? Can the U.S. get any island concessions? Can they get Bermuda?
Barbados.
Yeah.
St. Lucia. Florida at the time was British controlled.
That's
the Bahamas.
true. It wasn't until the Adams-Onis Treaty, I think, that the United States ends up purchasing Florida.
Yeah,
right?
but it buys it from Spain because Britain gave it back to Spain.
Oh God, yeah, that stuff is kind of makes your head hurt a little bit.
It does. But the Bahamas, quick detour, actually there was fighting in the Bahamas. The Marines actually attacked Nassau.
Oh, wow,
in
okay.
1775, I think, or is it 1776? Either way, it didn't really succeed. But what if the U.S. wins a huge victory? Canada, Florida, Bahamas, Bermuda, perhaps all British holdings in the Western Hemisphere. I don't know if they give them up, all of them, but what does that look like? First of all, S.M. Sterling, very happy about
Very happy about that, yeah. A lot of these islands are moneymakers. They're sugar producers.
Yes.
So now the United States inherits the slave industry down there because that's how it gets done. It doesn't get done with free labor. I would say that France probably would want a lot of those islands because for France, almost all of their fighting, they came up and helped in Yorktown, of course, but they were mostly focused on the Caribbean. They wanted a change of territory down there during the war.
Yeah, because they wanted those islands. Those are hugely important in the 1700s. The sugar, particularly, that comes from those islands. Incredibly important for the European economy.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, what is a U.S. with more of this? And also, here's the thing: is the United States is governed by the Articles of Confederation. How the hell are they supposed to govern a bunch of colonies when they can't even bother to govern themselves?
Yeah, I mean, how do you square that circle? Because as we said, part of the compromise about the Articles of Confederation is that we would stop quibbling about who owns what. You know, we were talking about that in regard to Quebec. Who owns Quebec? Is that its own state? What's the Bahamas? Is the Bahamas its own state unto itself? Like, what's going on here? Is it a district?
District of the Bahamas.
Of Bahamas?
Is it a territory? Is it a free? Who knows?
Who the heck knows?
Or is France in this case going to say, okay, you get New France, you get Quebec, and you get Florida, but we take the Bahamas, we take Bermuda, we take any islands that are...
And we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but the Haitian Revolution is empowered by the French Revolution, the breakdown of the authority of France. So if France owns all of the Caribbean islands, then there may be similar revolutions on other islands such as that. I don't know.
It's just something that American slave owners were terrified of. The Haitian Revolution was one of those things that was just utterly, because it was successful.
Yeah.
I mean, they became a free country.
They succeeded in their endeavors. Yeah. They sure did. And, you know, we talk about the American Revolution being a revolution, but some people say that it's not really a revolution in the same way that the French Revolution is, the Haitian Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the two Russian revolutions, I should say. Well,
certainly not as, bloody, but not anywhere near. The French Revolution is a complete almost top-down reorganization of French culture. And we still, a reverberation, its effects still reverberate with us. Russia, China, these are overthrowing ancien regimes, huge changes. And the American Revolution is very important in many ways, but the social strata of the United States, what becomes the United States, is not hugely changed from what it looks like previous. France is upended. 1789 to 1815, those are about those 26 years have more change than about any country that I can think of, shy of the Soviet Union or maybe China.
It's crazy. And you want to analyze the American colonists would talk about the exploitation of the British and, we're enslaved by the British. Compare that to Saint-Domingue. It's laughable, like the amount of,
Oh, yeah.
And also, a lot of these revolutions, these other revolutions, end in score settling, where mass killings afterwards.
Yes.
America doesn't. There's a lot of loyalists. Many of them leave. A lot of them don't. And they go on to live normal lives in the United States. They're not, murdered.
There was individual score settling for sure, but not on the scale that you see in the French Revolution, this massive, let's guillotine all the aristocrats, let's kill all these people sort of thing.
I'll tell you, the Committee of Public Safety, that concept in the French Revolution, that started in America.
Really?
The committees of correspondence, committees of safety in America, and then they borrow that term of phrase and then use it for let's kill a bunch of people.
Yes. Let's find enemies of the state.
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe we're getting to that part of the discussion, but, if the American Revolution is different, how does that affect other revolutions that take cues from the American Revolution?
Absolutely.
So the French Revolution is, of course, just a few years later.
Yeah. Which is hugely inspired by. There's no doubt that the failure of the American Revolution likely means a very different French Revolution, or something that has a very different, especially the philosophical underpinnings, is sort of the Enlightenment, that's the driving force. I mean, at least initially that's what they're saying. It's the rights of men, the difference between the ancien regime and all that. So here's America standing for these values of democracy and representation and all that.
I mean, yes, the philosophical aspect of the French Revolution is inspired by the American Revolution, but it's also practically inspired by the debt taken on by the Kingdom of France.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they spent a lot of money helping the United States become free. And if there's a different revolution, if there's no revolution at all, maybe that debt crisis doesn't precipitate a big social upheaval in the same way.
No, absolutely. Although a lot of that's underpinning the French Revolution exists from before. It's a century and a half of financial mismanagement.
That's true. That's very true.
It's a huge part of it.
So there's something to be said that maybe something like this. And of course, the Enlightenment didn't start in America. It started in
Europe.
And you know what? Simon Bolivar, the George Washington of South America, he took a lot of inspiration from the American Revolution.
The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Ho Chi Minh inspired a lot of...
Yeah, sure.
Mao Zedong, I mean, a lot of revolutionaries inspired by this.
Yeah.
So... it could very well have very much altered with and that's sort of like in that Sliders episode where the where the American Revolution fails, is that basically the idea is that the world is basically run by a few monarchies.
Yeah. Similar to how Timeline 191 is a bunch of empires, because World War I is different. So the concept of the empire doesn't collapse in the 1910s the way it did in real life. And
here, could the Treaty of Paris have ended on less favorable terms for the U.S.? We wanted to get back to this.
Yes. I mean, it is an amazing sweetheart deal that the United States gets. They get all of the Ohio Valley. They get everything up until the Mississippi, basically. And then Spain or France, Spain gets, the Louisiana Purchase that ends up happening.
Yeah.
The reason we buy it from France is that Britain gives that to Spain, and then Spain is conquered by Napoleon. Mm-hmm. And then Napoleon takes acquisition of it and then sells it to America.
He says, Ridley, what should I do with this?
He says, I got a great idea. Yes. And so that is an important aspect of that. Britain keeps Florida, but then gives it to Spain later, and then we buy it from Spain or something like that.
Yeah.
Part of the negotiations, though, were held up by the fact that Spain wanted to keep fighting. They didn't want to stop in 1782, 83, what was it?
Yeah. Well, 1781 is Yorktown, but it's not until 1783 that the Treaty of Paris is signed.
Yes. And Spain did almost nothing in the war, but they wanted to try to take back
Gibraltar.
Or
as someone recently said to me, Gibraltar.
That's hysterical.
Yeah. I had a good laugh with that.
I got to remember that one. That's pretty funny. Gibraltar.
Don't you mean Gibraltar?
Gibraltar. That's great. Well, and the United States kind of were loose cannons during the negotiations, because they, despite agreements that were made beforehand, they negotiated a separate peace with Britain. They went over the heads of France and Spain and negotiated directly with Britain to get that amazing deal that they got. But let's say we send different negotiators, worse negotiators. I think Benjamin Franklin and John Adams, I think, were part of this. Let's say we send some jabronis who have no idea what they're doing. And they're like, well, we don't want to go over the heads of other people, so they just stay quiet and allow France to continue fighting for Gibraltar for years and years. And like, what happens then? We get a crappier deal, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We need a good deal.
We need a negotiator. The negotiator, Denzel Washington.
That's right. An equalizer, even.
An equalizer 2.
An equalizer 3.
Equalizer. It's even more equal now. But I don't know. We continue fighting for more years.
Gibraltar becomes American. That's how screwed up it becomes.
That's how we negotiated. Yes. Or I don't know. Maybe America gets an even better deal. Probably not, but who knows?
We get Brazil somehow.
Blue skying here. We get Tunis.
That's right.
Great British possession of Tunis.
Well, the Britain controlled Algiers and I think it's Tangier for about like 50 or 60 years at some point in the 1600s, because they got it from the Portuguese when Catherine of Braganza, or is it Braganza? I don't know.
I don't know either.
I do know that there's the Barcelona
Yeah,
And
they
then
lisp.
in Barcelona, a city I have been to, also a really awesome place. Highly recommend it. Great food, great sights. Go to Sagrada Familia. It's amazing. Great food, great paella. They serve sangria by the liter.
Oh my God.
Really cool sights. Highly recommend going to the Barcelona History Museum. They have Roman ruins underneath that you can walk through. Pretty cool. Sagrada Familia, amazing. But there's a main street to it, and it looks like to us with Passeig de Gracia, but it's pronounced Passeig de Gracia.
De Gracia?
Passeig de Gracia.
De Gracia, like Degrassi that
Yes.
Drake was on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Drake, our finest actor.
Yeah.
No, but yes. What were we talking about?
Spain.
Yes.
Barcelona.
Yes. Yes. Tangier.
Tangier, yeah.
Tangier at one point. And I think Algiers was also controlled by the British, but they gave it up. And I
Okay.
think they got Tangier as part of Catherine of Braganza's marriage to Charles II.
Okay.
Yes, Charles II. Yeah. James and Charles and James, they all look the same in their picture frames. That's how you have to remember it. That's what the British say.
Okay. All right.
All the Stuarts, not the most auspicious house
Yeah.
that ever ruled Great Britain.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had some trouble.
Some trouble. Yeah. But we got this Dutch guy to fix everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good old William.
Glorious. It was glorious.
It was glorious. Him and his wife. Yeah, the co-monarchs.
Yeah. Very orange. the
Very
two of them.
orange, yeah.
There's a
They
university in America named after them.
Yeah, William and Mary, the College of William and Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Yes. Speaking of which, the 7 Years' War, King of Prussia, the city of King of Prussia, that's named after Frederick the Great because he helped us in our coalition in the 7 Years' War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. That's a long name for a city. I've driven by King of Prussia because I've been to Valley Forge years ago.
Okay. Nice.
It was a valley, kind of forgy.
Oh, yeah. There was forges, just forging onward. Yeah. Pittsburgh, you know who that's named after?
William Pitt?
William Pitt. You know why?
No.
Because he was an advocate of the colonists in Parliament during the Revolutionary War. So in recognition of him and his son as well, who was also a Whig, they named a city after him, Pittsburgh.
And the people of Pittsburgh have lived down that name ever since.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
They're
I'm
all
joking.
Whigs. It's a
That's
Whig
right.
stronghold.
Yes. Yeah.
over there.
Wigs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just joking. They do call people yins instead of you, like you all. Like in the South, they say y'all or you all.
Uh-huh.
They say yins.
Really?
And this is true. I met someone from Pittsburgh. I've actually worked with someone from Pittsburgh in the past.
Uh-huh.
And I asked them, is this true? And they confirmed that indeed it is true.
That's crazy.
Yins.
Yins.
Sort of like how in New York they call it a hero. Philly, they call it a hoagie.
Yeah. Gyro.
And the rest of us call it the proper term, which is long sandwich with meat and bread.
Yeah. A submarine sandwich.
A submarine sandwich.
A nuclear submarine
This
sandwich.
This is a typhoon class submarine sandwich. This is the triple whatever, the Jimmy John's gargantuan. This is the typhoon class.
I would like the gato cat. I would like extra cat on this sandwich, please, if you don't mind. Interesting. Yen.
Yins.
The value of the
not
yens.
Yins. Not yin. Yins.
Okay.
Yinzers. Sometimes people from Pittsburgh are called yinzers.
Is that Y-I-N or Y-E-N?
Y-I-N-Z.
Z?
Z. Yins.
My God. That's crazy.
Yep.
You learn something new.
Maybe we should tweet at Terry Bradshaw and see if he can enlighten us.
That's a good
He's
idea.
associated with Pittsburgh.
I think that's correct. Yes. Okay. I'm
joking.
I did make a Twitter for.
I'm joking. Let's not tweet at
Let's
Terry
not
Bradshaw.
do that. Yeah. I don't know how Twitter or X works
X.
now.
Sorry, X. Yeah, is that what it's called now?
It is called X now. Yeah.
And this is going to take a while, obviously, for this to get posted.
Yes. As always.
That's
yes.
okay. We want to do it right.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I wish, it's just we do it when we can with our schedules. Quality
over quantity.
We're not going to do reaction videos, which are the worst thing on the face of the planet.
Yeah. Split an episode into 100 shorts, 100 1-minute videos.
Basically, all those things are people going, "Oh my God," and then looking at a screen going, "This is crazy.
I can't believe it.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. God damn it. I hate it."
Teapot Dome live reaction.
Yes, the Teapot Dome.
I can't believe this Wikipedia article. This is crazy.
This is crazy. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
Really stupid.
It's pretty silly.
Yep. Okay, next thing, Newburgh conspiracy.
The Newburgh conspiracy. So you want to talk about the war going on longer. There was some problems during the time period after Yorktown. So after Yorktown, not a lot of fighting. Almost no fighting, really. Just patrols shooting at each other.
I kind of want to look up. That's something I'd like to learn about. Like, what's happening between 1781 and 1783 war-wise?
Almost all naval actions. And it's almost all Britain and France. Not a lot of American input. Though, the concept of the Purple Heart was introduced after Yorktown. So, George Washington said, you can be recognized for getting wounded in combat, but only after basically all the combat is over. So,
do those apply for non-combat wounds?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Because I saw the movie Terminator Genesis in theaters, so I feel like I can probably apply for one of those. Or maybe a Bronze Star, even if I'm feeling lucky.
Well, were you
I was alone. I went alone to a movie theater and watched Terminator Genesis.
Were you serving your country as a public employee at the time? You were not.
No,
okay.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
No.
That wasn't until later. So
I'm going to write my congressman. I tell you what, I know it wasn't as bad as being at like Omaha Beach, but it was bad, Max.
It's pretty close.
It was bad.
If you think about it. Yeah.
There was a lot of gunfire hurtling through that theater. I'm just joking.
The psychic trauma of that.
Yes. And then they said, you know what? Let's do Terminator Dark Fate.
Was that Danny Houston who was John Connor in Genesis?
No, that was Jason Clarke.
Jason Clarke.
He of the mid-2000s, 10s fame. He was in Everest and other stuff.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, kind of faded. Jai Courtney, or as a friend of mine once said, the man with the best agent in Hollywood. Also known as Boomerang guy from
Suicide Squad.
Which I can't. Are they the same? Are they different? Because one's called Suicide Squad and one's called The Suicide
Squad. Yeah.
And I can't be bothered to figure out what the difference is, other than Idris Elba's in one of them and the other one's Will Smith.
Will Smith. You saying we're some sort of Suicide Squad?
You always love it when they say the title of a movie in it. Like, there's a Family Guy joke about like, and that's why this is called Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
So you're saying it's some kind of Gabriel over the White House, you could even say. Interesting.
Should we talk about that? Because this kind of fits in as close as anything with the Newburgh conspiracy.
Well,
which we haven't really explained what it is yet. Let's explain that, then we'll talk about Gabriel over the White House.
So during the war, the part where no one is actually fighting, but there's still a standing army. So the army still exists in this weird purgatory time between when the war is won and the war is officially over. So you have this standing army that's kind of, fighting a little bit, and they want to get paid. They need money, okay? But the Confederation Congress, it sucks. It's not able to generate the money. It's not able to pay people.
They asked someone nicely and they said no.
No, sorry. No, there's no quorum, so I can't even say no. I can't say anything because we don't exist.
Sorry, I have to adjourn immediately. I can't even be talking to you right now.
But there was this alleged plot that some Continental Army members were going to march on the Congress and take full power of the government because, this is a dereliction of duty. You guys suck. You guys are terrible. And Washington famously walked into a meeting that they were having, and he had this wonderful speech where he basically says, I've served my country this entire time. I've become gray, and he motions to his hair, which, by the way, real hair, not a wig.
No, he did not. He did not wear a wig. He had his hair powdered.
Yes, he powdered his hair. So that powdered wig story you were talking about,
which we haven't talked about yet, but we will talk about.
Sorry, I'm living outside of time, past and present.
Quantum time. I live in quantum time.
I'm inside the Tesseract, sort of looking through the bookcase at myself, talking on a microphone. But yeah, that's his real hair right there. He has a ponytail in the back, which you don't see in the portraits, but it's there. But anyway, he walks in to this meeting, this Newburgh meeting. And he diffuses the situation. He basically says, keep waiting for the money. It'll come. I promise you. Don't march on Philadelphia or wherever the hell Congress is at the moment. Just sit and wait and trust me. The process will get you your money.
That's what every coach says. Trust the process.
Trust the process. Yes. And he also famously put on a pair of glasses. Scandalous that he put on glasses in front of other people. And he said, not only have I become gray, I have also become blind.
In service of my country.
In the service of my country, exactly.
Not just him saying that. I've become blind.
Yes, I am a blind man
Just
now.
sit there after saying that.
By the way.
Yes. And here's the thing is you notice, like, this is a huge moment because there was pretty strong, some people at this were pretty strongly in favor of creating some sort of military dictatorship. And their idea was Washington would be the head of it.
Yeah.
That he would be an American Caesar.
Yes.
That he would take over, that they said only you can save the situation. Only you can prevent forest fires.
Well, there's a lot of classical reading of the time. A lot of people wanted to emulate the Roman Republic. Speed running Rome as quickly as possible. Go past the Republic to Caesar to,
Well, maybe not like Commodus. Let's skip. Oh, wait, don't get a Commodus yet.
Oh, no. Joaquin Phoenix, yes. But if there was ever a time for Washington to seize power as the Caesar, seize power as to make himself king, it would be now. But of course it didn't happen because he's Washington and he doesn't want to do that.
Do it.
He also has no kids. So if you're going to become...
And that was a huge, the fact that, and that was a big thing that he almost certainly was sterile.
Yes.
Probably from smallpox.
Or malaria.
Or malaria.
Possibly. Yeah.
Either way, he couldn't have children because Martha Washington had children with her first husband, but she did not have any children with him. And they were certainly within the age of... She was in the age of childbearing when they married, and he was famous for being very athletic. He was quite tall for his era. He was a strong 5'9". Just kidding. No, he actually was somewhere around 6'2", I think is what they say. Yeah. Thomas Jefferson, also very tall, even possibly taller than him.
Interesting.
If you go to Monticello, which I highly recommend, was really interesting, really cool, great place to walk around. There's a life-size statue of Thomas Jefferson, and he was very big. He's like 6'2" or 6'3".
Interesting.
But that's a short digression. Another father of his country.
Another father of many individuals. Yes.
Yeah. Ugh. Not great. But here's the thing. Monticello does not run from it. They don't sugarcoat it. Like they're very open about it.
It's also a slave plantation as well.
It was a plantation. They do not shy away from it, which I appreciated that they were very honest about that they didn't try and hide it and be, oh, well, that's unconfirmed. Or maybe it was actually like his nephew who fathered, but yeah, and the fact they didn't have children, he couldn't be a king. He couldn't be and I don't know if the Newburgh conspiracy, the aim was probably more like dictator rather than king.
Yeah.
But here's the thing is if he said, and this is again going to being president, if he had become president and said, I want to be president for life, no one would have stopped him. If he said, I believe the president, once they're elected, should serve for life. I'm serious. Seriously, people would have been like, oh, okay.
All right. I guess I can't really
eternally run every 4 years to be president. Seriously, that's how much cachet he had amongst his fellow Americans.
Well, and if Washington was dead at this point, if he was killed in the Battle of Brooklyn or something, and Horatio Gates or someone else was in charge, then
President Gates,
maybe that, or Benedict Arnold, for instance,
President Benedict Arnold
wouldn't have the same adherence to Republican virtue. Like maybe that would be the American dictatorship moment, the American Bonaparte.
Yes, American in his bony parts. No, so you talked about the standing army thing, which I swore I saw a quote from Elbridge Gerry said this at some point.
Of gerrymandering.
Or it's actually gerrymandering.
It's gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering, but everyone says gerrymandering.
Yeah.
But it is actually, it's Elbridge Gerry. But apparently, and cut this if this isn't true, but apparently he said he was very much against a standing army. Mm-hmm. And he said a standing army is like a standing member, assurance of domestic tranquility, but a dangerous temptation to foreign adventures.
If you have a standing army for more than 4 hours,
contact your doctor immediately.
Contact Congress immediately and stop paying the money at once. That's funny. That is so funny. Gary.
What a piece of wisdom right there.
It's so well.
A dangerous temptation to foreign adventure.
That was something else I learned from the Cause book, is the fact that the Continental Army was almost covered up how much importance it held after the war. Like a lot of people insisted that no, it was militia that won the war. The militia is what did it. It was regular farmers standing up and joining a fight if they wanted to, I guess.
The Minutemen fighting for a minute and then saying, no, just kidding.
I'm done.
joking.
Yeah. 1 minute. That's all you need.
You got 1 minute. You get 2 shots. It's whatever minute. That's 2 shots out of the right.
2 shots, 1 minute. That's what Gary says. You keep it in mind.
That's right. Exactly.
That's
Because that's all he had on his mind.
That's all you need.
He actually was vice president, but died while he was vice president.
No, one of them. One of the ones. Colfax, Schuyler.
Did he? Well,
I think he did.
The one Taft's vice president died, and they didn't bother replacing him.
Yeah. Classic.
John Sherman.
Or
is it James Sherman? James Sherman.
James Schoolcraft Sherman, I think his name is. Yeah.
Schoolcraft. James Lovecraft Sherman.
Lovecraft.
Um,
But yeah, imagine though, just in your mind's eye, let's say that this popular notion of the militia keeps going on. Let's say
they got that standing member down again. They went to the doctor
and
after
they
4
say,
hours.
Never again. They say we'll take precautions against that. Let's just say. So never to rise again.
Never to rise again.
Yeah. The sun is setting on that. But let's say just hypothetically the war ends super fast for America. All right, there's not a lot of battles, and we say it's the militia that did it. It was militia, standing armies, not important. And going forward, the United States doesn't want to have a standing army. 1812 happens, the War of 1812. Mm-hmm. Now it's just militia. Terrible idea. Terrible idea.
Did not work out well in 1812. We need a professional fighting force.
Yeah. It's kind of funny to just imagine, like, this is very stupid, but go to the modern day and it's like fighter aircraft owned by militias and
my God.
Here's one Abrams.
F-16. Guy. Well, I did play Microsoft Combat Flight Simulator a couple times. So, flying an F-4F in the Pacific in World War II is like the same as flying an F-16, right?
Yeah. Honey, I have to go walk to war now in my Humvee to go drive there.
Oh, no, you have to bring your own gun. This Ruger 1022 I will use in the Gulf against...
It's a goofy idea, but I just thought
we have the National Guard, but it's not so.
No, it is. Yeah, it's quite different.
Yes,
it's top down. It's not bottom up.
Yeah. And then the Army Reserve, which is different.
It is somehow. I don't know how exactly, but it is the Coast Guard.
Not like the British. They changed the name. It is now called the National Guard or something, but it used to be the Territorial Army, which sounds a lot cooler.
That does sound cooler. Yeah. Russia has its own National Guard, the Rosgvardia, owned by Zolotov. Owned, yeah. Owned and operated. Trademark. But Zolotov, he was Putin's bodyguard, which of course qualifies you to be the head of
Who is the guy from the Wagner group? Is it Wagner or Wagner?
It's whatever you want, but I say Wagner personally.
Dun, 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 dun.
Exactly. Yeah, that's Prigozhin.
He was a caterer, and I wasn't sure Sergei Shoigu, who's like the head of the Russian chief of staff, is like...
He's like a building contractor or something
like that.
Yeah. Prigozhin. There's pictures of Prigozhin serving food and drinks to George W. Bush during his visit to Russia.
Borscht,
whatever you want, man. Yeah, exactly.
Hey guys, I have a great idea. Mercenary group.
Yeah.
Think beyond the borscht.
Yeah. Well, he was in prison too.
Oh.
For a long time. Yeah. In his youth.
And they recruit a lot of people from prisons.
They do, or they did. I don't know. Everything's crazy at the moment.
That's a dangerous proposition.
Yeah. Let's talk about some works of American Revolution alternate history, because there's been a few of them, though not as many as I would have thought. I mean, I was racking my brain and I couldn't think of too many of them.
Well, number one on the list, obviously, we talked about the Sliders episode.
Of course, yeah. The name of it, I can't remember the episode. The Prince of Wales.
The Prince of Wales, wailing, like crying, wailing.
Yeah, exactly.
And in that one, the revolution fails, and basically the world's run by a bunch of monarchies. But the idea of George Washington being killed during the American Revolution was the inspiration for Sliders, because I guess one of the writers had read something about how at some battle he was urging his men on, and something like 5 people shot at him, and they all missed.
Yeah, holes in his coat or whatever.
And the guy said, well, I thought to myself, what if one of those people had just been a slightly better shot? And that's pretty much the whole revolution goes under.
Yeah.
And that's the inspiration for Sliders. That's what brought us Cro-Mags.
It's a linear line from there to there. Yeah.
God. Yeah. So But as we talked about earlier, is that how influential the American Revolution was in inspiring other revolutions. So
and inspiring television shows as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jerry O'Connell, where would you be without the American Revolution?
It's just, I don't know.
Oh, sorry, Gary O'Connell. Sorry. Jerry instead of Gary. Jerry.
Elbridge Gary O'Connell. Yes.
That's right. And his brother Charles.
There's that book For Want of a Nail.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I own it. It's over there. I'm looking at it right now. I have not read it yet. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Neither have I.
It's a fascinating idea for a book. It's
written as a textbook, right?
It's written as a textbook, yeah.
With footnotes.
With fake footnotes aplenty throughout all of it. And also, I know this because somebody told me about this. There's like a little bit at the end so it's written as a textbook, and at the end there's a criticism section where this guy basically makes fun of the entire book that ran up to there. It's like, this author completely disregarded this and that, and I don't agree with his conclusion here and there, and it's kind of a funny idea.
The guy who wrote it apparently was like a professor of economic history. Like he was like a tenured professor. Like he was a legit academic. And he wrote this, and it's a very thorough book. And it goes crazy. Like by the end of it, it's like there's some sort of like corporate super state that's based out of Formosa or something like that. And it involves, the Battle of Saratoga, the British winning, and that leads to some pretty crazy stuff.
I think there might be some maps in that book too. There is on the Wikipedia page. They look interesting. But yeah,
Manitoba. That is a big ass Manitoba.
Robert Sobel or Sobel, whatever you want to say.
Soybel.
It seems very interesting. I would like to read it at some point.
Yeah, definitely need to.
But that's definitely a work of alternate history and kind of an interesting gimmick to it. There's a Japanese anime. It's called Code Geass or whatever you want to call it. That's a real interesting one right there. The idea is that during the American Revolution, Benjamin Franklin betrays the revolution. He turns around, betrays it. I guess somehow this leads to an American defeat. He becomes Duke Franklin.
Oh no!
They make him a duke of something. I don't know of what. And this leads to it's very silly, but basically the British Empire is really gigantic. It's huge, though it doesn't include Great Britain. So the island of Great Britain, the island of Great Britain has been conquered by, I guess, I don't know, like Napoleon or something back in the 1800s. So Britain, the Britannic Empire is the North American continent, basically, and also Japan. They conquered Japan as well. And the plot of it is that like this young noble of this Britannic Empire is trying to basically kill his family so he can inherit the throne or whatever. It's very similar to an old film, Kind Hearts and Coronets.
Oh, that's with Alec Guinness, right?
Alec Guinness, yeah. It's a very good movie. It's a nice dark comedy. And then there's giant robots involved or whatever. But
and then there's giant robots.
Yeah, there's some of that. There's like nuclear bombs, and it's really silly. I only watched the first season. The second season was too dumb. It was too stupid. But yeah, it's got lesbians in it, kind of, S.M. Sterling style. Yeah, the huge blob nations. It's got that too.
What could go wrong with that?
A flawed story. Not a lot of alternate history in it, really. But
Duke Franklin.
Duke Franklin. Yeah.
Sounds like a drummer. Duke Franklin.
Yeah, Duke LaPrague. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. That's an example of American alternate history. There's the Two Georges.
Yes, the Two Georges, which you have read some of.
A little bit. I watched a YouTube video recently. That Emperor Tiger Star guy, he's another YouTuber who does the alternate history stuff. And he did a video where he was talking about it. And I only watched the first part of it because I didn't want to spoil myself. But man, oh man, let me tell you, that book is... interesting. It's kind of like when we talked earlier about Benjamin Franklin's work about how there'd be an Anglo-American empire in the future and, we'd be one unified state. And
based out of central Pennsylvania.
Central Pennsylvania, somewhere around there. And in it, it's crazy. It's supposed to be set in, I think, like 2006 or 1996, I think.
I think it's the 90s.
Yeah, it is the 90s. And it's like a steampunk thing. Everything runs on steam.
Oh,
there's dirigibles everywhere.
Oh, of course.
The thing, my eyes bugged out of my head when I read this, that he talks about how and then I turned on the pilot light for my steam, the kerosene burner underneath the
steam car.
The steam car. I waited for several minutes as a head of steam was built up in this car.
Oh my God.
And then he drives it someplace and he parks it, but he leaves the burner on low to keep that head of steam ready for when he was going to drive away.
Oh my God. Well, I guess that's what you'd have to do if that's the way it worked, is that you'd have to have.
And I mean, one wonders, car accidents, like a gigantic steam explosion happens and kills the person.
Oh my God.
Gee, why didn't we use an internal combustion? Why didn't we use this kerosene to run our car instead of steam for some reason?
Oh my God. That's right. Of course, a car accident.
Yeah, there's dirigibles everywhere. There's biplanes all over the place, even though it's the 90s. What's going on?
Well, yeah, dirigibles, they use lighter than air. Travel. Well, and isn't the divergence is the British win the American Revolution, but also the divergence is that this book was written by Harry Turtledove and Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah,
the guy from Jaws. And Red, not Red 2. That's Anthony Hopkins.
He's not in. Was he the bad guy in Red?
He's the bad guy in Red.
Got it. Okay, interesting.
God, Richard freaking Dreyfuss. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I think this is the only thing he's written, pretty much.
He and Harry Turtledove, where he's like, "Hey man, you want to write a book about like the British like not winning the Revolutionary War?" And Harry Turtledove's like, "Yeah."
Well, to be fair, there is no Revolutionary War in the book, so
there's none.
It's diffused ahead of time.
Nice.
So it never comes to fighting. So George Washington is a respected member of the British Empire. He never rose arms.
That's right, because it's a picture of the two Georges, him meeting George III, and the picture's been stolen.
Yeah,
and Richard Nixon shows up.
Does he?
I think so, apparently. And Martin Luther King is like the head of the British colonies in America.
Okay, all right. Butterfly effect. He probably shouldn't exist, honestly, but whatever.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
John Calvin King.
And then, yeah, exactly. Then Roy Scheider called up Harry Turtledove. He's like, "Hey, do you want to write a book about like America losing the War of 1812?" And he's like, no, only one person from Jaws can write a book with me about alternate American history.
It is so funny, too. At the very beginning of The Two Georges, it's like, we really want to thank the Goodyear Corporation for allowing us to take a ride up in a blimp. So Richard Dreyfuss and Harry Turtledove went on a blimp one afternoon.
God, I wish I could have been a fly on a wall for that.
That's great. I'm happy for them. That's really good.
You wonder how they met each other.
I can't even imagine. I have no clue. Well, they both live in California, I'm sure. So
and
somehow.
With 50 million other people.
Well, that's true. Yeah. But, Harry, he's well connected. He runs in high circles.
He does. Yeah. He writes a lot of books.
He does.
I wonder if Richard Dreyfuss was like, you know what? You should write about a guy named Sam Karsten. Guess what? Gets sunburned easily.
Really?
Harry, you got it. Run with it. Make the story around that.
Okay. I think I can probably think of something.
But make sure you reemphasize that point.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that the audience is fully aware.
Don't want anyone to forget about that. Yeah. You said,
yes,
we alluded to it earlier.
Okay, there's a story in one of those Martin Greenberg alternate history compilations called His Powdered Wig, His Crown of Thorns. And it's set in a world where Benedict Arnold, not only has he betrayed the American Revolution, but he and this group of Native Americans assists him in capturing George Washington, who gets tortured to death like William Wallace style.
Oh, my God.
Well, I don't know exactly, but he gets tortured to death and the American Revolution fails. So the story is set in basically New York, and this guy is like an art dealer from Britain. And he goes into the store that has these like weird dolls and weird art. And basically what he finds is this group of like Native Americans they feel bad about their involvement and leading to George Washington's death. So they worship him and they make these dolls, but they're made out of human skin. And it's really weird, but they talk about his powdered wig, his crown of thorns. And it's like, sounds like Jesus. He basically becomes Jesus, like to them. George Washington is Jesus. And I remember very well the end of it. I don't remember all of it, but I remember the end of it. The guy like kind of like joins him and he ends and he like grabs like the cuticle with his teeth and starts tearing off a piece of skin. And I'm like, what is going on here? Why do you have to make the skin doll too? Put the lotion on its skin.
Buffalo Bill, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very strange, but it is a goofy title. It is a very good, memorable, His Powdered Wig, His Crown of Thorns.
But once again, I'm going to throw it out there. Didn't wear a wig. Not a wig guy.
I know, I agree.
I can't believe it. Well, the possibilities are endless. It's a different world.
Yeah,
so,
he could have, yeah.
The fact that he had a wig is what caused all this.
Yeah,
is the thing.
That's how they could catch him.
Yeah, he had alopecia or whatever. Like, I don't know. Look, anything's possible, okay?
Possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
If I can write a story in a mega America world with no Draka where Groucho Marx and Mel Brooks are flying aces.
Sure, yeah.
Why can't George Washington not have hair?
That's true. That's a good point. I mean, the man can have a wig if he wants to have a wig.
Yeah.
Oh, another work. Captain from Kirkbean.
Yes, that's in Alternate Generals.
Yeah, alternate generals. I think that was
John Paul Jones.
John Paul Jones. Yeah,
he
is not from America.
He's from Scotland. He's
from Scotland. Yeah,
but he is it John? It's John Paul Jones. Yeah, I have not yet begun to fight.
Yes,
that
classic.
He in this joins. I guess he stays in the British Navy or joins the British Navy, and he's just Sir John Paul. Yeah. Why they were like, get rid of that Jones. I don't know.
Okay.
But he basically, it's like an alternate battle of the Chesapeake, and he's leading the British. And the intimation is that they're going to win the Battle of the Chesapeake.
Okay.
Is my recollection. It's been a long time since I read that story. And then, of course, we can't forget the charge of Lee's Brigade.
Oh my God! Yeah, the charge of Lee's Brigade. That's an S.M. Sterling short story, right there.
It is a S.M. short.
And man, that's a pretty fun idea. That's also an Anglo-American Empire story.
Yeah, that the revolution is lost and that Robert E. Lee is stillborn, again, for want of a nail.
I mean, no, it kind of makes sense because he's the son of Light Horse Harry Lee.
But would he be the exact same person? Because basically, would history, and you intimated this in another episode, but how can history be the same when what sperm fertilizes the egg? I mean, out of millions or thousands, millions is one. And the timing has to be basically perfect. And you could make an argument that if you made some sort of change, even minor in history, the reverberation down the line history would be completely different.
A transcription error in your genetics. I mean, you're different.
You may have the same name, possibly.
Same parentage.
Even maybe same parentage. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe not.
But I mean, yeah. I mean, that's the ultimate, like,
that's where like the Years of Rice and Salt gets it right, is that basically you change one thing and 500 years later nothing
should be the same.
There should be no one whose name should be similar. The world should be completely different.
The only downside of that is that it's kind of less fun.
No, I agree. I agree completely. No.
You don't get to have as much fun with the whole, hey, it's this person in a different, Richard Nixon is a car salesman or whatever,
Richard Nixon is a fighter ace. Maybe I could put him in one of those. I'm working on a lot of them.
Yes, Millhouse. Yes,
Millhouse. Yes, fighting for the Japanese for some reason. Just kidding.
Born in Tokyo for some
Why
reason.
Not?
Why
not?
Hoheki Banzai. Yes.
No, but the charge of Lee's Brigade, set in one of those mega Britain empire world, and it's intimated that like they control China, Japan, Britain controls like everything, and how they can manage empire of that size is remarkable.
And they're fighting the Russians
at Crimea.
That's the last.
The Crimean War happens in the exact same. It's very strange.
Yes, but they're the last big empire to topple before world domination.
Yes,
like that's
Victoria owns everything.
The biggest blob of all. That story.
Charles III. Everything belongs to him.
His powdered wig.
Him and Prince Andrew, the best.
His drooling lips. Yeah. Falkland War veteran.
Prince Andrew is a Falkland War veteran. Yeah.
He overdosed on adrenaline, as he said.
Yeah, that's why I can't sweat.
I can't sweat.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's so dumb. What a moron. What an idiot.
Why? Not that there was, I don't know if there's anything he could have said that helped him, but that did literally nothing to help him. That interview only did bad things for him.
I mean, not knowing.
Deservedly so. He's kind of apparently was Elizabeth's favorite, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, what are you going to do?
Well,
I mean, don't hang out with.
He's just missing his friend. That's all.
I don't do things over the phone. Cowards do things over the phone. So I go to Central Park and walk with my good friend, Jeffrey Epstein, in front of cameras.
because it's the in-person connection that matters.
That's the honorable thing to do.
A phone is so impersonal, Max. It's the in-person.
In order to tell you I can't be seen with you anymore, I need to be seen with you in order to do this.
Yes.
What a dummy. What a dumb idiot.
Yeah. That was 4 years ago that broke out. I remember it was 2019.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. That was nuts.
It's crazy. Yeah.
World's strange since then.
Yeah.
But Charles has got it well in hand now.
Yeah, Charles, he's
the defender of faith.
Faith.
Is defending
in general.
The faith in general. I am the defender not only of the Anglican faith, but the Roman Catholic faith as well, and the Unitarian faith and the Methodist faith. For King Charles, the head of the Methodist Church.
Anglican Church.
No, now he's the head. He's
right,
the defender
of course.
of the faith.
Duh,
the defender of faith. He also is the head of... I am the head of the Mormon Church now. Prince Charles,
the defender of Faith Hill as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I found interesting. So that the defender of the faith, the title, they've kept it ever since Henry VIII got it from the Pope after he wrote a tract attacking Martin Luther, and then the whole breaking from the Church of England gets formed. But he kept the title because he liked it.
Yeah.
But I do like that for a long time, for years, from the 1300s until the 1800s. The British monarchs, part of their title, they claim to be the King of France or Queen of France.
Yeah.
Until it was actually during George III's reign, during the Napoleonic Wars, they finally we don't want this.
Enough of that. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I'm the King of France too, by the way, just in case you were wondering. Even though pretty much with the end of the 100 Years' War, there was no legitimate claim to France anymore.
No. Hanover, though. That's
yes. Minden, Hanover.
Minden.
Hesse Castle.
Hessians.
Baden-Württemberg. What is it? Saxe-Coburg-Gotha.
Okay.
These are the fine places in Germany.
Yeah. Germany? I don't know what that is.
Germany? What is that?
Germania? That doesn't exist.
You mean the Hanseatic League?
What, you mean like from Julius Caesar's, the commentaries? Germany? Yeah, I don't know what that is. So you want to talk about alternate history, points of divergence. If you were going to go back in time and prevent the American Revolution, you only had a few hours. The way to do it would be to talk to George III. George III is the great man in history at this moment that causes the revolution. If he accepted the olive branch petition, even a token acceptance, even saying, I'll do everything I can to help you out. Or like, I'll reserve one seat in Parliament for all 3 million people in the
you figure out who it's going to be.
Something.
Probably Ben Franklin.
Ben Franklin be the first one, something like that. Like,
Benny boy.
That if he did that, it would have split the cause tremendously.
Yes.
Yeah, guys like the gentleman who didn't sign the Declaration of Independence,
Dickinson,
yeah, John Dickinson. His argument that this is a parliamentary army, not a royal army, could have some weight at that point. That would really confuse everything and maybe prevent a war. So I would
Bernard Montgomery fighting only in the name of Parliament, not of the King. El Alamein, this is a parliamentary victory over the Germans, not the King's victory. Which is funny, interesting enough too. This is a huge tangent, so it's a tangent within a tangent. Is that in Britain, so it's the Royal Air Force, the Royal Navy, the Royal Marines, but it is the British Army, because the British Army, as it is constituted now, traces its history back to the New Model Army of the parliamentary forces during the
Cromwell.
British of Cromwell. They consider themselves to be direct descendants of it. So they are the British Army. They are not the Royal Army.
That's crazy.
Well, but everyone else, the Royal Navy, Royal Air Force, Royal Marines, the Royal Coast Guard. Just kidding.
Isn't there like the King's Own or the Queen's Own?
That's the name of a regiment.
Okay.
There's the King's Own. There used to be the King's Own African Rifles. There's so many. There's the Duke of Cornwall Light Infantry. Mm-hmm. There's the Durham Light Infantry. The Oxford and Buckinghamshire. The Ox and Bucks. There's a whole bunch. There was the Parachute Regiment, the Tank Regiment, the Royal Tank Regiment, the Household Cavalry. There's the Coldstream Guards. Okay. There used to be there's a Gurkha Regiment still within the British Army.
Interesting.
There was the Royal Welsh Fusiliers, the Irish Guards. The Scottish ones are crazy too. Like you have like the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders. You have the Black Watch, which I forget the name of what of their, there's a whole bunch of, there's just like, they have like individual regiments, but they don't keep their battalions together. It'll be like this, whatever, the 187th Brigade of the 3rd British Division in World War II had like the 5th Battalion, Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders, 4th Battalion, King's, Royal Rifle Regiment. And it's just like, what the... Huh? And in the modern U.S. Army, actually, there's a lot of different units from different. It'll be like, this is the 2nd Battalion of the 69th Armored Regiment, makes up this part of this brigade, which also has an infantry regiment, an infantry battalion from this, and blah, blah. It's like, I can't even keep track of it.
It's a bit confused, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
And some of those regiments are like from the Revolutionary War, even. Like,
well, I mean, like the 3rd, I think it's the 3rd Infantry Regiment traces its history back to the 1700s, I think. I mean, that's the ones who protect, is it the 2nd or 3rd who protects like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier?
Huh.
I don't know. Some of those, it's a very confused. And then, a lot of the divisions in World War II, U.S. divisions were raised based off of National Guard. They were federalized National Guard units. So like the 34th Infantry Division, which is a division that should get more. I want to do an episode at some point on the Mediterranean theater because I think there's a lot that you could talk about it. 34th Infantry Division at Operation Torch, fights in Tunisia, fights in Italy, engages in one of the greatest feats of American arms probably ever, which is they almost single-handedly captured the town of Monte Cassino in January of 1944 while the 36th Infantry Division is getting butchered on the Rapido River.
Oh, God.
The 34th Infantry Division almost captures Monte Cassino. Comes pretty damn close, actually. But 34th Infantry Division, so these people fight in North Africa, Italy. They stay in Italy till the end of the war. Federalized troops from Iowa and Minnesota.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of the early 32nd Infantry Division, which goes and fights in New Guinea in 42 and fights through the remainder of the war, the division that spent the most days in combat of any American infantry division in World War II, was raised in Wisconsin. Yeah, I mean, they are draftees were used as replacements, but a lot of those divisions were based off of federalized National Guard units that fought on. So yes, 34th Infantry Division, the Black Bull, I think is what is it? The Red Bull or the Black Bull? It's got a really cool shoulder patch.
It's like the Rock, it's got the bull.
The Brahma Bull.
Yeah, the Brahma Bull. Yeah. You think of the Pacific, you think of the Marines. You don't really think of or at least most people don't think of the U.S. Army.
But they were a huge part. Well, think about all the fighting in New Guinea was the Army.
Yeah.
The Marines are in the Solomon Islands, and then they become part of the drive across the Central Pacific. But the fighting in the Philippines, in New Guinea, and there's also the Americol Division, and the 37th Infantry Division saw combat in the Solomon Islands. Guadalcanal, the Americol Division.
My other grandfather,
yes.
Not the one I talk about all the time, but
he had another
Yeah,
he had another. Yes, of course, he had another grandfather.
Right. Yes, I have two grandfathers, but the other one, the less often mentioned one, was in the 45th Infantry Division.
40th.
45th.
Well, he fought in the Philippines. No, the 45th is the one that fought in Europe. That's the 45th Infantry is the one that used to at one point had the swastika on its patch. That was raised from they changed that though. That was the one raised in Oklahoma.
Oh yes, I'm so
40th.
Sorry. It's the 40th, not the 45th.
Mm-hmm.
The Sunburst Division.
I know more about your family history than you do, Max.
Damn it, you're right.
I'm taking over. I'm going over to your parents' house, and I'm like, okay, I'm Max now.
They're big fans of Sun Yat-sen, as you can see.
Yeah,
here.
they have the Sunburst. Is the Sunburst Division? What was it he called it?
The Flaming Assholes. Yeah.
I had a relative who was in the 87th Infantry Division.
87th.
Killed in Luxembourg.
Oh, that's
January
right.
1945. He's buried in the Luxembourg Cemetery.
The
Golden Acorn.
Golden Acorn.
I didn't know that until you just pulled it up on Wikipedia. But
yeah, you read it very quickly, though.
There actually was very few divisions and consisted entirely of draftees. Some of the most notable fought actually in the Mediterranean, the 85th and 88th Infantry Divisions. I think the 91st Infantry Division was also completely draftee raised. But most of the other ones were raised, at least in part, from National Guard units that were federalized.
Interesting.
So, but they had more coherent, like the name, the numbers. The 1st Infantry Division, which was actually a regular army, but that's 16th, 18th, 26th Infantry Regiments. And then you have your integral, whatever, your artillery and engineer units built in within it. But it makes sense. You didn't have like one battalion from this infantry regiment and this other battalion from this infantry regiment. I'm writing to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, telling them they need to go back to the old formation. Let's go back to the Civil War era. We'll raise units from states. We'll have we're going back the 3rd Maine Infantry Regiment.
We'll name them after bodies of water. The Mississippi.
The army of the Persian Gulf, the army of the Taiwan Strait,
the army of the Sea of Sulu.
Yeah, exactly.
The army of the Bering Sea.
Well, I think I got to go in a minute, unfortunately.
Is there anything else you can think of?
No, I think we've covered this pretty well, and a lot of other stuff too.
Yeah, I think this was a fine episode that we just did.
Better than the first version.
Yeah.
Did we even have a copy of it, or did we get rid of it?
It's gone. It's gone forever.
Lost to history.
It is lost to history. Yeah. Tears in the rain,
You can have your episode if you can keep it.
If you can keep it.
Who said that? Was that
Ben Franklin?
Is that Ben Franklin?
To a woman. Said it to a woman.
What?
Yes, there were women in America at this time. It's true.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. John Adams's wife wrote a letter, and it's like, you should remember the women.
Yeah, Abigail
America.
Adams.
Yeah.
John Adams, portrayed by Paul Giamatti.
Yeah.
John Adams.
Woo!
There's a Paul Giamatti sex scene in that.
Oh, yeah.
Not a big a fan of that. I'm a fan of the overall show. Sorry, Paul. Wasn't a huge fan of that scene, but that's okay. There's also a really gross scene where they have to inoculate his children for smallpox.
Smallpox, yeah.
And they use cowpox, which is what they did.
That's what they did, yeah. Yeah, get a guy with sores on his body and like, take them off.
Yum.
Yeah,
this
gross.
looks great.
Disgusting.
Really disgusting. But I mean, that's better than dying of smallpox, I guess.
It's true. Yes.
But
yeah.
Well, that's where vaccination, vaca from cow.
Vaca, cowpox. It's all connected.
Edward
people.
Jenner.
Edward Jenner?
Yes.
Or Ginner?
Is it
like Elbridge Gary?
Genner, Jerry. Who knows?
Who knows?
Our G's and J's have just fluttered off into the
GIF and GIF and all that.
It actually is GIF, I think.
I like GIF and animated
I
GIF.
prefer GIF. It's easier to say. Sort of like Elbridge Jerry is easier to say than Elbridge Gary.
Yeah.
Because I think Gary, I think Gary.
Yeah. But, Gerry apparently is a thing, too.
I'm a standing member.
Standing member. That's too funny. I got to remember that. That's great.
Let's double check and make sure that's real, because if it is included, be very careful about how you type this in.
Yeah. Yep. He really did say that.
Here it is. Here's the exact quote. A standing army is like a standing member. It's an excellent assurance of domestic tranquility, but a dangerous temptation to foreign adventure.
And I mean, just look at this guy. You know he knows what he's talking about.
That's John Adams.
This is the guy.
That's the guy.
Yeah.
He knows it.
He looks like there's a prime minister of Canada.
Not Trudeau.
No, not that one.
It is funny. I will say that I sometimes check in every once in a while on the what is that called?
Reddit?
Our Reddit page. Yeah, I found it interesting. People were commenting about, they're trying to figure out about our political leanings, and they pointed out we didn't like Trudeau, but I don't know if that necessarily says a whole lot about it, because I don't know if a whole lot of people in Canada like Trudeau.
Yeah, well, and he did win the most recent election. I would say a plurality at least likes him.
Yeah.
But Wilfrid Laurier. Laurier. Yeah, I'm not really a French speaker kind of guy. My sister knows the international pronunciation characters. So
good on her, because I can't make it. Looks like Wilfrid Lobja.
Lobja.
That which cannot be the
Lobj. Wilbid Lobj.
Wilfrid Lobj.
Lotke. He's.
So what about Wilfrid Laurier?
He kind of looks like Elbridge Gary a little bit.
Yeah, they do actually.
You look at them side by side, you can kind of see it a little bit.
Both of them expert knowledge of the effect of the standing member
of your hairline. That too.
Yeah. Well,
though of course, Gary's got a little bit of the more male pattern, whereas Laurier is just, more
beating
just
a full retreat.
Yeah,
beat to quarters.
It's a little bit more of the Picard haircut, a little bit, just like straight up, you are just bald with a little bit of hair kind of thing. But yeah, okay, I think this was a successful episode.
We've only recorded for
like 3 hours, almost 3. Let's make it 3 here when I say throat discs. You know what?
And we have to talk about Gabriel over the White House.
Gabriel, yeah, we do. I love throat discs. I think you'll love throat discs too. They're a lozenge. You can take them. Your throat feels a little sore. You've been using your throat a little bit too much, singing, talking, whatever you want. I recommend going to throatdiscs.com. Get some. I'm a big fan. I highly recommend them. So go to www.throatdiscs.com, DISCS, and check them out.
This is fun.
Yes.
This has been a marathon of recording. I like it.
I like it too. I'm excited about editing.
Me
this
too.
This will be fantastic.
We'll see it soon.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be 2024 by the time this comes out. We'll see what happens.
Well, this is Matt signing off.
And this is Max signing off.
Have a good day, guys.